4 degrees under a rainfall warning, and it's 6 degrees in Smiths Falls. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. A fourth shot of COVID vaccine now available. The provincial portal opened about an hour ago for certain people in Ontario. We get the details from Carl Hansky.
It's Ontario residents 60 and older and First Nations, Inuit and Métis individuals 18 years and older who can start booking appointments for their fourth COVID vaccine shot. Here outside Union Station, Bill qualifies and is booking his booster shot ASAP.
Well, I got not very good lungs and I'm old. I got 3, may as well get the 4th.
But there are many other commuters who will forgo the 4th.
I'm good with the 2 shots. I got 2 and I'm good with that.
And those still not sure.
I'm a maybe at the moment and just have to give it some more time to have myself think about it.
Now, those booking a 4th shot will find their date will depend on when they receive their 3rd shot. A minimum 5-month gap between the two is recommended. Reporting live, Carl Hansky, City News.
City News time 9:01, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Rainfall warning continues for Ottawa, the Valley, Smiths Falls. We've already reached our high for the day. We'll sit at about 8 degrees this afternoon. Strong wind tonight, more rain, the low near 3. And tomorrow, periods of light rain with the high near 10. For today, already reached the high for the day. For the afternoon, near 8.
And right now in Ottawa, 4 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it's 6. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is accusing Ukraine of derailing peace talks by walking back a proposal that international guarantees of its security don't apply to Crimea. Russia annexed the Black Sea Peninsula back in 2014, and it wants Ukraine to acknowledge Russia's sovereignty there. Ukraine has not responded to Lavrov's claims. He says Russia intends to continue the talks despite what he calls Ukrainian provocations. The Foreign Affairs Minister in our country, Melanie Joly, says the goal of today's NATO foreign ministers meeting in Brussels will be to keep pressure on Russia to end the war in Ukraine. She spoke with reporters on her way into the meeting.
G7 has become this real coordination group where we talk about not only the strong sanctions that we impose on Russia, but also we want to make sure that there's no loopholes.
Now, Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg is calling on NATO members to provide more weapons for Ukraine and not just defensive anti-tank and anti-craft arms. He also insisted it is important for NATO not to be dragged into a wider war with Russia. City News Time, 9:02. Today's federal budget expected to include measures to make buying a home more affordable. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland also expected to include billions more for national drug and dental plans as part of the Liberal deal with the NDP. More money for the military as well as part of the agreement with NATO allies. A better-than-expected economy and higher oil prices will pad the government bottom line, helping offset new spending to be announced at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Now, what is in the federal budget wish list for Ottawa City? Here's City News reporter Chris Curries.
Housing and transit, the 2 big checklist items. Catherine McKenney hoping investments will take people off the roads and onto light rail.
I'm hoping for a recognition from the federal government that cities, municipalities require those operating dollars as well as the capital dollars.
They tell City News Ottawa needs to get out of its housing emergency, and Matthew Fleury hopes to take it the rest of the way.
And then as a city, we'll continue to advocate for local investments in our recreation infrastructure, our road infrastructure, our transit infrastructure, our housing infrastructure.
Chris Curries, City News.
That was about a 20-minute delay for the start of the Masters this morning. Some bad weather rolling through Georgia overnight. Golfing eyes on Tiger Woods. After almost losing a leg in a car accident 14 months ago, he is playing. Tee times off by about 20 minutes. Tiger still expected to tee off just before 11. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's got the news and the views.
He's got views on the news.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Rainfall warning. Do you really need to be warned that it's raining? Or do you just kind of step outside and say, hey, it's raining. I think I will conduct myself accordingly. Good morning. Be careful out there. It's raining, in April in Ottawa. Welcome to the Rob Snow Show on City News. Busy, busy, busy. We're very busy around here. That's the way we like it. Lots of big news stories in the mix today. None bigger than the federal budget. 4 o'clock this afternoon, the Minister of Finance, Chrystia Freeland, brings down the budget. We'll have coverage throughout the day here on City News from our team on the Hill, led by Cormac McSweeney, our Parliament Hill Bureau Chief. We know what some of the big-ticket items are going to be because, as I told you on Monday, it is common practice for the government to leak most of the juicy news to the media ahead of the actual release of the budget itself. Because in the media, the government does that. Leaks it to the media because the budget, barring something totally unforeseen, the budget's not even going to be part of the news cycle by Monday. By Monday, all of the budget news will have been absorbed and basically disappear from the coverage. So the government, any government, wants to get a few days of positive press, Will this budget deliver? I don't know. What is this budget about? What is the overriding theme? Is there even a theme to this budget? Is it having your back? Is it having your back? Because we're still in a pandemic, we'll have your back. Sixth wave rampaging across the country. Is it about inflation? The rising cost of living? I see the government is promising action on housing affordability. But what's been leaked to the media so far? I don't know. It kind of fails to impress. See, the Trudeau government, I get it. It's under immense pressure to do something about this sky-high cost of shelter. One of its plans, it's been leaked to the media, is a $10 billion 5-year plan. $10 billion over 5 years, or $2 billion a year. A year, $2 billion for the whole country. Now, it sounds like a lot of money because it's still a lot of money, $2 billion. If I gave you $2 billion, we'd never hear from you again. But you do have to kind of put that number into some kind of perspective. $2 billion, it's there in part to help increase the stock of housing, the supply. We're going to increase the supply of housing. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not a lot of money. When you're talking about the Canadian housing market, it's not a lot of money. Look, before you can build a house, what do you need? You need a building permit. Usually issued by a municipality, a building permit. And according to Statistics Canada, and anyone can look this up because Statistics Canada keeps very detailed data on building permits because it's a key indicator of economic strength or weakness. Just in February alone, $7.5 billion worth of building permits issued for residential construction in Canada. $7.5 billion worth of permits to build housing in 1 month. Shortest month of the year. Just in Toronto. $1.8 billion worth of building permits just in 1 year. Just in 1 month. Building permits for 7,000 single-family homes and 16,000 condo and apartments. 22,000 units in a month. So $2 billion from the federal government for the whole year, for the whole country. It's not nothing, but you can see nothing from there. And this ban on foreign buyers, my gosh, you can drive a school bus through the loopholes in that thing. Permanent residents, foreign workers, and students, all exempt. So, I'm a foreigner. Let's say I'm a foreigner, which doesn't sound racist at all, first of all, right? Let's blame the foreigner. The foreigner can't buy a house because they live wherever in a foreign country, Hong Kong, Dubai, Singapore, whatever, right? But they have a cousin in Canada, or an aunt, an uncle, a sibling, and they're a permanent resident, or they have a child and they're a student going to the University of Toronto. come on. You don't see the work around here? It's not very serious to me for what is a very serious problem in Canada. But anyway, the budget. 4 o'clock. We'll also get into federal budget coverage, Ontario angle. We'll be joined by Lindsay Maskell, Andrew Brando this morning, our weekly contributors, for a little bit we call Ontario politics. This week, we'll talk about the Ford government's handling of the 6th wave of COVID-19 as well. The message from the Premier is keep calm. Okay? Nothing to worry about. Everything is under control, but the voices are growing louder. The voices of those in the healthcare system and in public health who think the Ford government is downplaying the severity of this wave because we're so close to the election. We're just a few weeks removed from the writ drop. And so the accusation is any decision from the Premier, it has the taint of politics. The Premier is not motivated, they will say. He is not motivated by medical science. He is motivated by political science. And if there's ever going to be a move back to health restrictions, lockdowns, and the like, it's not going to happen until after the June 2nd election. You're free until June. And Kathleen Wynne. Lots of praise for Kathleen Wynne these days, the former Ontario Premier who is leaving politics, giving a farewell speech in the legislature this week. Look, I have nothing against the former Premier, Kathleen Wynne. I just don't buy into this narrative that she was ahead of her time or she's got some kind of visionary. Quite frankly, I thought she was a terrible Premier. Ran a terrible government. A government filled with never-ending scandal and gross incompetence. A government out of touch with the real pain that its policies caused real people, from hydro rates to hallway health care to a neglected long-term care system that was on full display just a year after her Liberal Party's historic defeat. But that's just me, and it's raining outside. Maybe I'm just in a dour mood. But 4 years ago, most voters agreed with me, 7 seats. Kind of speaks for itself, doesn't it? What else do we have? Sports. Yes, that will cheer me up. It's a big sports day. Opening round of the Masters. Tiger Woods playing today. I looked up the latest tee-off time. It says 11:04, our time. It's just an incredible comeback story, again, for this guy. 14 months ago, Tiger Woods has talked about this. 14 months ago, doctors were wondering if they would need to amputate his leg that he destroyed when he rammed his SUV into a tree at high speed. And a lot of speculation at the time. Will Tiger Woods ever play golf again? Not professional golf. Will he ever play golf again? And I guess the answer is yet. Second redemption story for him, I guess. He came back from the sex scandal. You want to know about the sex scandal? Read the Vanity Fair reporting that they did on that. It's just like incredible stuff. But he fell far. But he came back and won the Masters. You remember that, David? Tiger comes back and wins the Masters. 2019, Tiger wins the Masters. Like,
I'll never
just
forget
amazing,
it.
Right?
Unbelievable moment.
Then, car crash.
Boom.
Was he done? Well, he's not done. He's playing the opening round of the Masters today. A tradition like no other. This will be a Masters like no other. Adam Stanley covers golf for the Canadian Press. He'll join us. Professor Elliot Tepper from Carleton University will complete our show this morning. His weekly look at world news, situation in Ukraine, still the biggest story, of course. Here in Ottawa, lots of questions about why we haven't kicked all the Russian diplomats and spies out of our country. What are they still doing here? Although there are reports this morning, Melanie Joly, Foreign Affairs Minister, has summoned the ambassador. She has convened a meeting, I guess you could. That's our strength. We are very good at convening in this country. And we'll do the Talk Back Hour. Going to pick up right where we left off yesterday. Sixth wave COVID questionnaire. It was very, very busy on the phone lines yesterday. Didn't get a chance to get to everyone's call. Very enlightening. Some straightforward questions again because, look, I know a few people right now. I don't know about you, David. I know a few people right now who have had COVID in just the last 10 days or so. 5, 6 people at least.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Some of my COVID-19 questions. Have you had COVID? What was that like? Was it mild? Was it severe? How do you think you got it? Do you know anyone else who has had COVID, say in your circle of friends or family? And we'll take it from there, and then we can get into, given the increase in cases, the increase in hospitalizations. Dr. Uni says 100,000 cases a day in Ontario. That's the estimate, 100,000 cases a day. If that's the case, what should officials do? The prevailing opinion yesterday was they shouldn't do anything. Keep calm, as the Premier would say. Share your thoughts, though, during the talkback hour, 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. Randall Denley, columnist with Post Media, is back with us on the Rob Snow Show this morning here on City News.
Sometimes it's crazy, but it's true. When I'm alone at night, feels alright to feel the blues. When I'm empty inside, hurting so bad, don't think that I'll make it through. Feels good to hurt sometimes. Always reminds me of you. Shouldn't think about the past so much. I got to let it go. I don't know, but then I think about your love and touch. Seems to go back more and more. And I go tumbling back in time to the days when you were mine. Guess it's time to face the truth. Feels good, hurts sometimes. I'll remember you. And when I'm empty inside, all alone and blue. When the sun won't shine, start to think about you. And then love starts to fade in, but anybody knew. Every time I feel my heart start to thinking about you. It seems I just can't let you go. It seems that I still care. I still need you so.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM.
and 1310 AM.
So for people who have been wondering, hey, where's Randall Denley? Why hasn't he been on the Rob Snow Show? Randall has been vacationing in Florida, but is back now in the land of what he calls in his latest column, the land of cold and fear. Welcome back, Randall Denley.
Thanks, Rob.
What was it like in Florida from a COVID perspective?
Totally different attitude. It just wasn't on people's front burner at all. Nobody talks about it. It's not really in the news. A lot of people still wear masks, especially in the grocery store, and people are making those choices, but not nearly so many as here. They've just kind of moved on, it seems.
Kind of moved on. Very interesting. Okay. What was it like when you came back and you had to cross the border?
Yeah, that was a surprising annoyance, or maybe it wasn't surprising, but the ArriveCan app, have to use that app to get back into the country. So, I knew about that before I went away. I downloaded the app to my phone, and, you upload your passport and your vaccination papers. And I was thinking, okay, why is it better to have these on an app when I have the actual documents in my hand? But, okay, that's what they're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I waited till April the 1st to get across the border without having to go through the testing rigmarole, and a fairly long line up at the border, nothing moving too fast. Finally, you get up there. It's just like usual, passport, looks at that, asks the usual questions, hands you back your passport. Okay, I need to see the ArriveCan app. Time for that. And then, okay, no problem, I've got that. You got it opened up. She said, well, they answered the questions. I said, there's questions?
What questions, right?
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's just my ignorance, although I could tell I wasn't alone, but there's questions. So I started to answer the first couple of questions. I said, no, okay, I'll just fill them in very quickly here. She says, oh, no, there's a lot of questions.
Okay.
Go through, pull over, and answer the questions, and then go into this building. You got to generate a QR code.
Okay.
So I do that, and there's a lot of people going into the building, so apparently it's news to them, and it struck me that wouldn't it be useful while these people are waiting in line for some border person to come and say, oh, have you got your ArriveCan app ready? Because there's a lot of questions.
Right.
And they all have to be answered here because, it's time crossing the border and that. But most of the questions, Rob, were about my plan to quarantine.
Okay.
And I thought, why are they asking me about this? Because I'm a fully vaccinated person. I don't need to quarantine.
You don't need to quarantine. Yeah.
But, questions can be asked. Do I have enough food and water? Where am I going to be? Will I be in contact with the elderly? On and on and on. So you answer all these questions. You get to the end. Finally, Bing, it generates the QR code. There you are. So QR code, I think, a modern technological government like ours, someone's going to scan that.
You would think.
No, it comes with a code of letters and numbers, and you just shout that out to somebody who puts it in their computer and say, okay, you're good to go. I thought, what is the point of all that?
Holy cow.
So I asked the Border Service Agency that question, and the answer basically was, hey, we don't make these rules. This is another branch of the government that does this, but these questions must be asked because, if you should test positive at some point after you return home, then you might have to quarantine, and then therefore, okay. It would just be so much simpler and faster to say to people, got your passport, got your vaccine papers, welcome back to Canada, good to go. But instead, everybody's, backed up in these lines. Well, we go through this little app charade.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we've got an app. How cool is that?
How long do you figure that added to the process of getting across the border? Like a half an hour, 20 minutes, an hour?
Oh, probably half an hour at least. The lines were barely moving, and you could see a lot of the people were flowing from the line into the building. So there was obviously some backing and forthing being done about this app. I mean, I suppose it wasn't a surprise to everybody, but it was certainly a surprise to plenty. And before we left, I just didn't understand the point of it, really. I still don't. Yeah. We have it because we can have it, I think. And it's kind of like so much of the federal policy. It's really a leftover from months ago when policies were different. Oh, you're going to be quarantining, so you better fill all this stuff in. At least they changed the rules and got rid of the silly, you must have a rapid test. Because what was the point of that? If you believe what we're told here, we have more COVID here than they do in the U.S., so why would you be concerned about a Canadian coming back from the U.S.? They're no more likely to create a problem than somebody who's going to the hockey game. So it's just so grudging and slow from the federal government. It's like they just don't want to let go of it.
Yeah. So here we are. We're just a few weeks away now from the election call. And, the premier and the health minister, nobody knows where Dr. Moore is, the medical officer of health. But he's working hard. Every guy never stops. Yeah. They're saying keep calm. Okay, everything's under control. No plan to reimpose any kind of health restrictions, capacity limits, mask mandate. Stephen Del Duca, the Liberal leader, is out there this morning. I demand that Dr. Moore resume his regularly scheduled news conferences and briefings with the media. Ontarians need to know what's going on. We're in the sixth wave. Dr. Uni told the media yesterday, maybe 100,000 cases a day. Headlines, health officials demanding mask mandate be reimposed, capacity limits should return, worried about the state of the classrooms, all of this stuff. Sixth wave. What should happen here, do you think?
I think the government's on absolutely the right track. We, in my opinion, have overreacted consistently for the last 2 years in our response to COVID and done a lot of things that, looking back, not particularly useful. All the plexiglass, for example, not useful. All the wiping, not useful. Too much shut down for too long. I think, now they're at the point where they say, look, yes, when we take the masks away or reduce the mandate, more people will get sick. But you got to do it sometime, and we have the healthcare capacity to handle it.
Okay.
That seems perfectly rational to me. The counter argument is, no, we have to wait. Well, what are we waiting for? Because at the time they removed the mandate, the numbers were extremely low. They were going to go up. They said they were going to go up. Is it a worrying amount? I don't think it is, but there are a certain percentage of people in public health and in the public who are just now, after 2 years, hardwired to imagine the worst. It's a sixth wave. What are we going to do? If the sixth wave means that more people have flu-like symptoms, that doesn't justify telling people to wear masks. It doesn't justify locking anything down. And people can choose to wear a mask. I wear a mask in the appropriate setting. I think that's what people should do out of consideration for others. But it's a different thing, I think, to choose to do that and to be forced to do it. And I think the government's on the right track now with what they're saying, and people just need to grow up a little bit. I say, where's the guidance? They've got to tell us what to do. What they really want, the most fearful, is for the government to tell everybody else to do things that the most fearful want. So if they were to take that advice, then our future actions would always be gauged on the concerns of the most concerned individuals. And I just don't think we can do that. I mean, obviously a lot of people have had COVID in the Omicron variant, the first one, now the second one. So they've either had it and they know what it's like, or they know somebody who's had it and they know what it's like. So it's no longer the kind of, oh my God, mysterious killer that's come out of nowhere like a sci-fi movie. They're like, yeah, I had it. It wasn't a big a deal. Or, man, my brother had it. He was fine after 2 days. I mean, not everybody's that fortunate, but for most people, it's not a big thing. So if there's a wave that doesn't send large numbers of people to hospital, that's just the nature of the world that we live in right now. COVID's still around. It's going to have variants. It's going to have waves. But we just can't keep shut down and fearful in the way we lead our lives. And that was the big thing that really struck me in the U.S. People just didn't seem fearful. They were out there dancing and singing and having a good time, and it's like they've moved past it. And I know, there's a Canadian point of view that says, I don't care about human life in the U.S. I mean, that's nonsense. They care about human life as much as anybody else does, but they want to live it, too. And I think the time has come, in Ontario and Canada, where we just have to say, look, it's a problem to a degree, but so are a lot of other things. We've got to live our lives as normally as we possibly can.
Okay. Thank you, Randall Denley, and welcome back once more.
Thanks, Rob.
Great
Talk to you next week.
Yep. Author and columnist Randall Denley. Ontario politics this week. Coming up right after the news on City News.
In Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, April 7th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now, 4 degrees in Ottawa, 6 degrees in Smiths Falls, and here's what's making news this hour. A simple look back on the calendar or at your vaccine passport and find out when your first booster shot was for COVID vaccine. Count 5 months forward and get your fourth. This morning, the province opened up the 4-shot appointments on their portal for any person who's age 60 or older, any Indigenous person 18 and older, along with their family members, and those who are considered at risk. Reporters, special interest groups, all in the lockup. They're poring over the budget document as finance officials hover to answer any questions. Federal Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland will begin the presentation at 4 o'clock this afternoon, outlining the federal government financial focus for the next year. Some of the drama taken out of the equation this year, as the NDP promised to support the minority Liberals as long as certain conditions are met. Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly says the goal of today's G7 foreign ministers meeting is to keep the pressure on Russia to end the war in Ukraine. She says the G7 has become a coordination group where the ministers talk about imposing strong sanctions on Russia and closing all possible loopholes. Joly says that way nations are united in sanctioning the Russian president, Vladimir Putin, his oligarchs, and important Russian companies. City News Time, 9:33. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
It's time for Ontario Politics This Week with Lindsay Maskell, Liberal strategist, former advisor to Premier McGuinty. Good morning, Lindsay Maskell.
Good morning, Rob.
Hope you're well. Andrew Brander is Vice President, Crestview Strategy. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning.
Hope everybody's doing okay. It's budget day. It's budget day, federal budget day here in Ottawa. Big day, big day. Big day for the media, big day for the politicians. I don't know if it's really a big day for the general public. It's maybe an inside the bubble kind of story. It's inside the political bubble. We get all wrapped up in it. I don't know if it really registers all that much with the general public. Had a terrible time trying to get phone calls to generate any interest on Monday. It was like, oh, the budget. Yeah, okay, well, we'll see. But you're political insiders. You've been there. Got the scar tissue to show for it, Lindsay Maskell. Okay, what's it like for the political staff to work on a budget? What's that process like?
Well, it starts long before budget day. I always think there's only about a month or two after your budget before you're already on to the next one. So it's an interesting time for political staffers because once the minister's office staff have done their part on the results-based plan work and their feedback, it really is down to that team in finance and working a lot with the leader's office on those final pieces. But the real excitement comes in that kind of lockup because, of course, as there's the media lockup and the stakeholder lockup, you have to remember the government members, other than the Minister of Finance, they have not seen it. Right? So they have some ideas, they have maybe some wording was run by them, but they haven't seen it in real life. So I really do have a favorite budget lockup moment of dealing with the caucus and the ministers that they come in after question period, and Deb Matthews had been working on the anti-poverty strategy, but to finally see it in print and kind of just holding it and then hugging it and just having this moment of how it was now really real. So there's some lovely moments in it, but there's also the tenseness of there's a lot going on, but it's not a lot going on for everybody. So sometimes the thing I didn't like about budget was busy minds but not busy people on the process because it is the way that it works, but it's definitely some fun moments. But also I was at Queen's Park, the infamous budget that we had from the Conservatives on their way out that did not happen at Queen's Park. So I was around during the Magna budget. So it was that was the only time that I think it would feel very different. I'm sure other than that one, our experiences would be the same.
And were you there when Dalton McGuinty brought in the health tax?
I was, I was there. I was at Queen's Park from 2001 to 2013, so that entire time, even a couple of years in opposition.
Man, John Baird was mad that day. Ooh.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I will not raise taxes. I will not raise taxes. I will not lower them, but I won't raise them. That was his promise. And then not only did he raise them, he brought in brand new ones. The health tax and the personal health tax and the employer health tax. And I remember John Baird was an MPP at the time, and he was just bellowing in the legislature, and they kicked him out of the legislature. The speaker had him removed from the legislature. You lied. Oh, man, it was a hot day in politics that day.
The theater.
Andrew. It was, and, who better to deliver it than the outrage, the channel, the outrage. But, Andrew, let me ask you this, Andrew. Have you ever hugged a budget, Andrew?
I have not. I will say my dorkiest budget moment was probably getting a physical copy of the budget signed by the late Jim Flaherty, former finance minister, in a very dark corner at like 11 p.m. at Highs after one of the federal budgets, but that's about the closest I've gotten to hugging one.
Yeah, you don't keep that under your pillow or anything, Andrew.
No,
nothing like that. No. Okay. I mean, if you're looking for an Ontario angle to the budget, this is Ontario politics. What would be an Ontario angle to the federal budget, do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there's lots. It's funny. Lindsay sort of mentioned the lockup, and she also talked a bit about how it's a big moment for a lot of ministers who are able to accomplish something from a person who works with a lot of people these days who pay a lot more attention to the budget than I did in the 10 years I was in government because I was never in finance. I would say I was talking to a client recently. I'll strip the names out of this story, but she's saying the client said, we want a cake budget. And I said, a cake budget? What does that mean? And she told this story about how 1 year she was going into lockup, and the lockups, as described, are generally separated by sector, by industry, et cetera, when we used to have a lot of smaller lockups. These days, obviously, with COVID, it's generally just sort of, a little bit different. But anyway, she was talking about the story about how she was going into her lockup, which was one room over from another lockup, and there was a minister she saw walking into that room with a great big cake behind them, following them, and obviously for a good news announcement with whatever was being announced in that lockup. And then she went into hers and found out that their funding was being cut. So,
okay.
Good news.
I want the budget with the cake. Yeah, I want the cake budget. Yeah,
Bingo.
yeah.
Bingo.
Okay.
So,
Gotcha.
I mean, from a provincial perspective, obviously, there are significant ramifications in terms of what the province is able to do. Obviously, a lot of the transfers on some of the most important things, healthcare and otherwise, have significant impacts on the province, have significant impacts on the municipalities, and that's that sort of trickle down effect certainly has a huge hand in the budget. The budget process. The only other thing I'd sort of comment on what Lindsay was saying. She started off her comments talking about how the budget process starts months and months, well before the process, which I don't disagree with. What I would say is when you strike a deal with the New Democrats, 2 weeks before a budget, a lot of that work goes out the window. So I'd imagine that the staff at finance today, are in desperate need of sleep and probably want nothing else than for today to be over.
Yeah. Events. I mean, my goodness. Yes. Think of what they've had to do. It's 40 plus days now of the invasion of Ukraine, which is that means basically a complete rewrite of the budget for national defense is going to be unveiled today. In addition to that, with this coalition that's not really a coalition, and Lindsay, you mentioned this for members of the government, for MPs, whatnot. They're really in the dark about what's in the budget, right? But the controversy with this particular budget is that Jagmeet Singh's already seen it. He knows what's in it. And Liberal MPs don't know what's in it. That's kind of breaking new ground. There's some reporting to that effect this morning from John Ivison speaking to that. But what do you think about that?
Well, I'm also prepared for the fact that I expect the NDP to be a little bit disappointed because they are not super familiar with how some of the process of government works, having them not had been there before. That things don't move as quickly as they would maybe like them to, and that is the harsh reality of government on every level, and that some of these things will need to have a work-back plan, and some of it might have been being planned already, but I'm sure the speed and at rate which the NDP thinks that they would have gotten traction on some of their items would just be immediate. But we really do have some major priorities with healthcare spending and transfers, and of course, as you said, a very immediate geopolitical challenge that is exposed, a funding challenge we have with our Canadian military. And I do believe that there'll be, unfortunately, despite cooperation in a budget that is going to be quite uneventful, because we know that there's not the risk for the first time in a number of years of possibility of triggering an election, and the joys of trying to find a budget dance partner when you're in minority government to get your budget passed. So it should be fairly uneventful, but it'll be interesting to see the response on the NDP side, with the fact that I don't believe that it's going to be, everything they've ever wanted. This is not, that isn't what an agreement like this would be about. And also the realities of the way things work in government, and how you need to do some work and bring programs in a diligent, thoughtful way that can sometimes take a bit of time.
Okay, when we come back, COVID and Ontario election politics, the sixth wave, and June 2nd. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
So the Women's Business Network is a volunteer-run association that achieves its strategy and vision by supporting women to achieve their success on their own terms by providing development opportunities, valuable connections within the organization itself, and it facilitates member access to growth within their business and careers.
I mentioned the absence, the 2-year absence of the Businesswoman of the Year awards. Obviously difficult, Mira, but certainly an opportunity to work on some new things. Tell us what you've got planned, what you worked on.
Yeah, we really missed putting on the BYAs for the last 2 years because of COVID. It also was unfortunate that we couldn't celebrate the women that were having such a huge impact on our community in Ottawa. So we're really glad that they're back now. As you know, that they've been around since 1983. Mm-hmm. They are a purpose to celebrate the achievements, the professional expertise, and the leadership of all of the outstanding women we have in the National Capital Region. And for the first time this year in 2022, we've introduced 2 new categories, one being the Lifetime Achievement Award and the other one being the Community Champion Award.
Okay, yeah, and let's break it down even further because, as I mentioned, there's different categories and then, of course, different awards within categories. Tell us about some of the returning categories and some of the other awards as well.
So the 2 returning categories that we're bringing back are actually the entrepreneur and the enterprise leaders. Those are very popular in our community. They draw a significant amount of nominations, and they do get a lot of attention because it's very common that we take the opportunity that we want to celebrate the entrepreneurs in our community, especially after the 2 years of being through what they've been through, right? So we're looking for nominees of owners who have significant impact on their businesses, that have seen strong growth in the last little while. And one of the things that we did do to revamp this award was we dissected it into 3 subcategories based on the term that the individuals have been in business for. So you've got from startups that have been around for 1 to 3 years, then we've got the emerging entrepreneurs 3 to 7, and the established entrepreneurs for 7 years and above. So there's really going to be 3 awards or 3 winners within the entrepreneur category itself. And then we've got the Enterprise Leader Award that's also come back. And this is an opportunity for organizations to nominate individuals within their business that display exceptional leadership attributes, positively impact the environment.
Opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
We're back with Andrew Brander and Lindsay Maskell. Ontario Politics This Week, Part 2. COVID and election politics, COVID-19 running wild again. I know lots of people who have COVID-19 who have been... who've tested positive for COVID-19 in like the last 2 weeks. What about you, Lindsay? You know anybody? Or,
Well, it's interesting you say that, Rob. So my father got COVID in hospital.
Oh, yeah, you told me that last week.
Yeah, the backlog. So he was being held in hospital backlog for procedure, got COVID. They had sent him home after 5 days because he actually at that point didn't have symptoms. But of course, that meant that he gave it to my mother.
Oh, my.
And we had thought she maybe was going to escape it because it had been 7 days, but then she did just test positive. And in the unfortunate world of my own household, my partner got COVID while I was away at a conference. So then when I came back and he had tested positive. And so we actually ended up having to isolate away from each other. So I have never had it feel more alive and in my life than in the past 2 weeks.
Is everybody doing okay? Pretty much.
Yeah, you know, it's amazing. For considering that my dad was waiting, for a valve issue with his heart. Yeah. He actually had very few symptoms, but my partner was quite surprised at how sick he was and did have to go to hospital. And
my gosh.
It was, but he is doing fine. But it hit him harder than what he thought for having 3 shots and plays hockey multiple times a week. So great cardiovascular health. So it was pretty shocking how much it affected his breathing and lost his voice.
All the best. All the best. What about you, Andrew? What about you? You know anybody in your circle or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, anecdotally for sure, in the same place as you both. As I mentioned last week, I only ended up at that terrific Del Duca speech because my colleagues weren't feeling well.
Oh, that's right. So they stuck you with that. They stuck you with that. Yeah. Okay.
That's yes. The silver linings of COVID, as I like to say.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, no, I mean, anecdotally for sure, it seems that
it's on the run.
Catching everyone who it hadn't caught up until this point.
Yep. Certainly. But the government's message is here, less than 2 months before the election, is keep calm, carry on. It's all under control. Dr. Uni yesterday said probably 100,000 cases a day. There's some people that want the mask mandate back. Maybe it's time to explore capacity limits, worries about schools. Andrew, what do you think about how the government's handling things here?
I think they are fully aware and acknowledge how much everyone has sacrificed over the last 2 years and how much people don't want to go back to that. And the whole purpose of reopening so slowly again was to protect that hospital capacity that Lindsay was referring to there, and I do think that although we're certainly not doing as much testing, et cetera, the real numbers that we need to keep our eyes on is that hospital capacity, and I do think that the numbers, there's a very reasonable case to be made that those numbers are manageable where they are right now. Where they are in a month from now, I can't speak to that. I'm not an epidemiologist, or I'm not going to predict things on that side. But what I say is, like, if we're looking at
but you are a political tactician, Andrew. You are a political tactician. Do you see the government changing course at all so close to the election?
I don't, and I'm sure no one wants to be the case. And I do think as long as ICU numbers and capacity remains low, then that was always the intention going back to day one of this, right? Which was protecting the capacity. So as long as we're doing that, as long as that objective is being met, then I think we're meeting the objectives.
Okay, Lindsay, what do you think, Lindsay?
Well, I think we have to look at some different metrics as well, right? So, I, like all Ontarians, am just over it and would love it to be done with. It was so amazing getting to do a political event about 3-4 weeks ago where it seemed like maybe we were in a better place and we could have events as usual. And it was just absolutely amazing. But that's not where we are now, 3-4 weeks later. And, we have always followed just a little bit behind where the UK is on in the world of, mimicking and being in a sort of a similar stage. And it's really scary in the world of what are our new metrics. It needs to not just be hospital capacity, because they have planes, public transit not able to go. Like, there is so much of their day-to-day lives affected because of services that aren't able to be provided because of the sheer number of cases and people home sick. So masking up and things that are just the smallest inconvenience should not be an issue if it helps us have a bit more normalcy in what we all want back, by just the fact that, what's going to happen when, people don't have that consistency of is school on or not? They don't have enough teachers because they're sick. Is your public transit route working? All of the other closures that are going to happen if we don't monitor and make some small adjustments, that is just making sure that people are vaccinated, to bring back masks. This is a small thing that could really help us in not being in the situation that the UK is in right now, of just the other services separate from healthcare capacity that are really interrupting people's lives and the things that make people worry, right? Like if your grocery store is closed, there are things that are outside of just essential services like hospitals that people need on a day-to-day basis that a rising case count to this level can really interrupt things, and we need to be watching it very closely.
All right. So many people are praising Kathleen Wynne as a visionary. I will bite my tongue. I wish her a long and happy retirement and encourage her never to become premier again. What makes Kathleen Wynne a visionary leader, Lindsay Maskell?
Well, the thing that I think that when people look back at what Kathleen Wynne did, not just because of being our first woman elected premier and a first openly gay lesbian woman to be elected premier, but the thing that I think when people look back at it, it will be hopefully more people will be talking about guaranteed basic income. I think that we have not handled the cycle of poverty well in government, and that there's a different way of looking at this that could have been a long-term investment of breaking that cycle and really improving and lowering the poverty rates, particularly for children, by addressing some of this and raising that standard of living that would that people then continue to maintain and thrive to. So I think some of those items around guaranteed basic income and an anti-poverty strategy would have really been the thing that made a difference. But I think we're going to be, unfortunately, talking about these things in 20 years because they were canceled, and people will remember that it
was a pilot program.
As a pilot program, but that was a real visionary item that we're going to be talking about many years from now.
Yeah, I think it would make more sense to do it nationally. I didn't like the way Kathleen Wynne was doing it anyway. But nevertheless, Andrew, say something nice about Kathleen Wynne.
I can just give the rest of the time to Lindsay.
Okay. No. Look,
you know what? As a fiscal conservative, I guess
I yield my time, Mr. Speaker.
One thing that's visionary about Kathleen Wynne's term is, I suppose she spent less money than the current premier, but she was also not dealing with a global pandemic. So there's that. I will say very honestly, I think she'll be remembered most fondly by educators. My mom, who's a teacher turned principal, former teacher turned former principal, used to call her sort of the last great education minister for the peace and stability she brought to the sector after the Harris years. Interesting to note, she sort of bucked the trend of education ministers who did not lose their seat in the term immediately following their time as education minister. But she came really close last time. And, one of the closest.
Yeah, she made peace with the teachers. It was Dalton who angered the teachers, but she made peace with them. Nevertheless, obviously passionate about her left-wing issues, strong streak of social justice warrior there. Politically, totally ruthless as well. Calculating, the way she orchestrated and her team orchestrated just the victory over Sandra Pupatello to win the Liberal Party leadership by getting, what was his name? He became finance minister. What was his name, Lindsay? Sousa, that's right. Yeah, Charles Sousa. To do that, totally took advantage of a very weak PC campaign under Hudak to win a majority, and then perhaps just done in by what does in most governments, the stench of time. But she was as politically ruthless as anyone I can remember, and that's not.
And she took John Tory down too when he ran.
That's right. You're right there
in the riding, right?
Yeah. So anyway, a long record of wins for Kathleen Wynne, that's for sure. And that's our time. Enjoy the budget. I know the two of you will be watching that very closely today. And thanks for your insight today. We'll speak next week. Stay well.
Have a great week.
Bye-bye. Andrew Brander and Lindsay Maskell. That's Ontario Politics this week. Rob Snow Show on City News.
Being a crossing guard works great as part of my schedule as a high school student because I still have time to do my tests and assignments while earning a little bit of cash on the side.
Working as a crossing guard fits into my current lifestyle because it gives me a lot of time during the day to pursue hobbies that I'm very interested in.
A friend of mine introduced me to this job. I didn't know it was actually a paid job.
I always start my day. It's a very little, I guess, few months baby, and she always comes with her dad on a pram, and the smile she has, like, oh my God.
Well, I think the OSC is a very good employer. They show quite clearly that they care about you. They're very polite.
They really make you feel like you're part of a family.
It's fun. I really enjoy it.
Gets us out of the house, too.
Yeah.
#1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, April 7th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 4 degrees, 6 in Smiths Falls, and here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. As more people in Ontario can now book a fourth shot of COVID vaccine, those over 60, Indigenous, or at risk, there is a tool seen as more important in the pandemic strategy. Experts warn, though, that rapid test results should be read with caution because of limitations on diagnostic accuracy as well as precision.
Canadians are taking on more personal responsibility for pandemic precautions these days as public health restrictions ease. Many of us are relying more on rapid antigen tests to let us know if we might be infected, should a symptom crop up that gives us pause before walking out the door. Dr. Christopher Labos, a Montreal cardiologist with a degree in epidemiology, says it takes more than one rapid test to rule out infection. He says that's because of high rates of false negatives. Potential sources of error include improper technique and testing too early in the illness for viral levels to be detectable. Karen Rebo, the Canadian Press.
City News Time 10:03, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Rainfall warning continues for Ottawa, the Valley, Smiths Falls. We've already reached our high for the day. We'll sit at about 8 degrees this afternoon. Strong wind tonight, more rain, the low near 3, and tomorrow periods of light rain with the high near 10. For today, already reached the high for the day, for the afternoon near 8.
And right now it's 4 degrees in Ottawa, 6 degrees in Smiths Falls. Ukraine is appealing to NATO for much more military help as alliance leaders are meeting in Brussels.
My agenda is very simple. It has only 3 items on it. It's weapons, weapons, and weapons.
That's Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba, adding this is needed so that the war does not spill over further. His words are echoed by EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell.
The important thing is to continue putting pressure on Russia and continue supporting Ukraine. Zelensky had a lot of support, but what he really needs is more arms. Less applause and more arms.
Ukraine also wants Germany to slash red tape so that more sorely needed supplies can get in. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
City News Time, 10:04. Kayakers on the Petawawa River discovered the body of a missing woman. They were on the river around 7 last night when they came across the body of a woman who had been reported missing last month. Upper Ottawa Valley OPP says foul play is not suspected in the death of 36-year-old Sarah Shankland. It's believed she drowned, but an autopsy has been ordered. She had been reported missing on March 24th. Only one Ottawa City Councillor took up a challenge from the group Acorn. That group looks out for low and moderate income families across the country, and it challenged councillors to go one day without internet. The group says it's very difficult for people it represents to manage living today without affordable internet at high speed. Acorn says other than Riley Brockington, no other councillor agreed to that challenge. Now it's calling on the city to develop a municipal broadband program similar to the one that's in effect in Toronto. The group has organized a rally to back their call. That is scheduled for 11 o'clock this morning. And an Alberta photographer, Amber Bracken, has won the prestigious World Press Photo Award for a haunting image of red dresses hung on crosses along the roadside with a rainbow in the background. The crosses were put up to honor children who died at the Kamloops Residential School in BC. One of the judges says that kind of image sears itself into your memory. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
COVID questionnaire. Day 2. And we did this yesterday. Didn't get to everybody's phone call. Thought we'd pick up right where we left off. So the COVID questionnaire, some very basic questions, and then I want to get into what should officials be doing now because of the sixth wave. 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. Very basic questions on my COVID questionnaire, like this one. Have you had COVID? Have you had COVID-19, and what was it like? What was it like? Was it mild? Get over it in a day, a couple of days? Was it severe? I heard yesterday people down and out, worst feeling ever, ended up in the hospital. Where are you on that spectrum of the severity spectrum? So what was it like? Was it mild? Was it severe? How do you think you got it? Some people called yesterday and said, no idea. I have no idea. I've been very careful, following all the rules, wearing my mask, still no idea. Others, my wife had it and she gave it to me. Or my husband had it and he gave it to me, and on and on like that. So there's a couple of questions. If not yourself, what about people around you, friends, family? Do you know other people? I personally know about 5 or 6 people who have had COVID in just the last 10 days or so. Me? No. Knock on wood. Knock on wood. David, how are you feeling, David? How are you feeling? You're feeling okay?
Tickety-boo.
David's never even taken a test, not in more than 2 years.
Yeah,
David's never. I don't need a test. Be careful. You better do some wood knocking.
Yeah, I am.
Right? Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay. And if you've had COVID, how do you feel now? I hope you're feeling better. Do you have any lingering issues because of COVID-19, what's known as long COVID? And then we can get into what should officials be doing? I mean, given the increase in cases and hospitalizations, what should officials be doing, if anything? The prevailing opinion yesterday, and again, I'd like to pick up right where I left off, was yes, no doubt it's out there. No doubt it's being spread around the community, but I still think we should just stay the course, that we're on the right track. That was the prevailing opinion right now. And not too many people wanted the return of things like the mask mandate or capacity limits. 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310, day 2 of our COVID questionnaire. I hope you take part. This hour only works if you call, okay? Very, very basic questions. Very, very basic questions. Because it's here. The sixth wave is here. And I want to get your views on the news. That's what the Talkback Hour is all about. It's all about the news, and the news is the sixth wave, the resurgence of COVID-19. And I want to learn more about your experiences with COVID-19. It helps me get a better understanding of what you're thinking about at this particular time. It's all over the news. It is all over the news. Big news. Still leading our news here. Just a sample of some of the headlines this morning. One of the big stories is what Dr. Peter Jüni said yesterday, the head of the province's COVID-19 Science Advisory Panel. The big headline is Ontario seeing 100,000 to 120,000 COVID cases per day. Science table estimates. Quote, Ontario seeing an estimated 100,000 to 120,000 new cases of COVID-19 daily, according to the head of the province's Science Advisory Table. Dr. Peter Jüni said the estimate is based on the amount of novel coronavirus seen in Ontario's wastewater, data experts began relying on to get a sense of the pathogen spread when the province started restricting PCR testing last year. He said the current spike looks very much like the fifth wave, fueled by the Omicron variant, which peaked in early January. We're at the same level again that we were then, Jüni said, end quote. So, 100,000 cases a day, 100,000 cases a day to 120,000 cases a day. But, that is far from the only headline that's out there. COVID-19 in the classroom, concerns linger as Ontario schools weather sixth wave. COVID-19 rates in Ontario children surging. Doug Ford defends Dr. Moore over lack of public appearances. Headlines. GTA doctors sound alarm, urge province to reinforce public health measures. Ontario classrooms brace for sixth wave. University Hospital Network reports staffing challenges. Ontario family got COVID twice in 1 month. Twice in 1 month. Carleton ends reporting of COVID-19 cases on campus as cases rise. Sick children flooding Ontario emergency rooms with COVID-like symptoms in dramatic increase. St. Catharines mayor tests positive, like watching a train wreck in slow motion. Rise of COVID, deeply concerning. Masks, cheap, easy, and effective. The sixth wave headlines of the day. So let's get to it here. COVID questionnaire and jam-packed phone lines. Up first, Stephen in Ottawa. Good morning, Stephen. You're on City News.
Hi, good morning, Rob.
Yeah,
how are you?
I'm good, sir. Thank you. Have you had
I just
COVID-19?
wanted to let you know this is a first-time call for me.
Oh, I appreciate that.
And the reason I'm calling is because I think it's absolutely disgusting, the actions of the Premier of the province of Ontario.
Wow, okay.
I believe that he has shown Ontario voters that he doesn't have the intelligence quotient to be a leader politically, and certainly not the Premier of the province of Ontario, which is the largest province in Canada and with the largest economy.
Okay, what should he be doing, in your opinion, Stephen?
Quite frankly, he should listen to the medical advisors that he touted so much during the pandemic, and as a couple of other people in politics have recently said, that it's clear to me that June the 2nd is emblazoned on his forehead, and he wants nothing. He doesn't really want to accept the responsibility for the pandemic because he knows that it will significantly affect his re-election potential.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you there, Stephen. I'm not disagreeing with you that a lot of the decision-making today is probably not guided by whatever medical science or medical advice might be there. Politics have taken over now, probably, right?
Well,
so,
quite frankly, Rob, I'm retired. I watch a lot of television news, and I'm convinced the Premier of Ontario, as I said, isn't smart enough to be the Premier of Ontario. He's as stupid as a stone. And I can't understand why people in this province would continue to follow some of his
So what should be done then? What should be done? I mean, should we bring back the mask mandate? Should we have capacity limits?
Well,
should we lock things down?
We should certainly bring back the mask mandate.
Okay.
You listen to Dr. Uni, you listen to these other professionals that he basically touted for weeks.
Yes.
That all of a sudden, because the election is on the horizon, he doesn't even remember who they are. So, as I said, and another thing is, I'm triply vaxxed.
Yes.
And I tried to get my second booster, and I went to the pharmacy yesterday, and I was told, oh, yeah, you have to be over 60. I said, well, I'm 74. And then they said, well, it has to be 5 months since your first booster. But I said, 5 months? He said, yeah, either that or you have to have a letter from your physician stating that you have an immune deficiency. So, I'm telling you, the way the party in power in this province has handled this pandemic is a farce.
Okay. All right, Stephen, I got you. Holy cow. Man, oh, man. How's that for a start? Let's go to Jason in Barhaven. Jason.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, Jason. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
I just want to say real quickly, first of all, Doug Ford didn't decide the interval between boosters. So, anyway.
Okay.
But, everyone in my family had COVID about a month ago now.
Okay.
And they were all fine. They were all sick for a day or two,
Okay.
Sore throat and stuff. I myself didn't get it. I think I might have had it in the very beginning. Okay. It happened to me twice now. The family got it, and there was a big outbreak at my work.
Right.
It was just me and one other guy that didn't test positive, so I think I might have natural immunity.
Right. Okay.
But anyway, I think more restrictions and stuff, this is just going to slow this thing down. I think that, Omicron is, we know it's not as severe as Delta. People aren't getting as sick. Most of the population is vaccinated. And, what we need to do is protect the vulnerable. We know who is at serious risk from COVID. It's been the same from the very beginning. So I think, we have so much knowledge and so much data now that we should know where we know where the protection needs to be. We know who's at risk.
Okay.
These broad policies, lockdown, it's crazy. And I think if, younger people getting infected with Omicron, they don't get that sick. And natural immunity is even better than the vaccine. So that's a good thing.
All right. Okay. So don't do anything. Stay the course. Stay the course. Yeah. That's a very popular opinion. It was an overwhelming opinion yesterday. Absolutely. Let's go to Steve in Westboro. Steve. Good morning, Steve.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, Steve. Thank you.
Okay, I know a lot of people that got the COVID.
Yes.
My stepfather died from it.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, he died. And as a matter of fact, Doug Ford, as far as I'm concerned, was pressured by the truckers to shut down because they went to his house. The non-vaxxers, they protested his neighborhood. The police had to come and take him out of his house and bring him up north to the cottage. Right after that, the election's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Many people are getting sick. Doctors are telling them, put on the mask, right? Okay, you know what I think? I think we're just a bunch of numbers out here. If you croak, you croak, as far as he's concerned.
All right. Okay.
That's what I think of Doug Ford.
Okay.
And
Have you ever had COVID, Steve?
Thank Lord, no.
No.
I've been staying away from everybody, wearing a mask. So is my wife and many people I know. We don't listen. This is all a political ploy for Doug Ford to get votes.
Oh, I see. Okay. So what do you think should be done then? If you think go back to wearing masks. You can wear a mask. You can wear a mask. It's just not mandated that you wear a mask.
But you should wear a mask still. I see so many people wearing them when I go to grocery shopping.
Yes. But do you think it should be mandatory to wear one? You do.
Well, so does Quebec.
Well, until the end of the month.
Yeah.
Yes.
They should be doing it because if the doctors are stating to wear it.
Yes.
And you don't wear it and you end up sickened because the long-term effects of COVID and all this is very serious. There's 100 different symptoms, 100 different types that you could get. Now, all these children are catching it, right?
They are worried about an increase in the number of cases.
Why doesn't Doug Ford do his job, what he's getting paid to do?
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay. You don't have to yell at me, Steve.
No, I'm not.
My name's not Doug.
I know.
Okay. Thank you.
Good day,
Thank you, Steve.
sorry.
Bye. All right. Okay. Boy, some people are upset today. It's just a COVID questionnaire. It's just a few questions, okay? I'm not here. I'm not here to tout the government's line. No, I am not. Not in any way. 750-1310, folks. My goodness, what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4 lines available there. Wait won't be too long. Take the COVID questionnaire. Day 2, Rob Snow Show, City News.
It really is a tremendous source of excitement and joy for the theater staff and I to welcome artists finally back to the theaters. It was a tremendous pleasure to sit on the selection committee. We really have something to cater to all musical tastes, from trippy art pop to straight ahead rock and roll to soul and funk. But it's huge for us to be able to welcome local artists back into the theaters to showcase their amazing talents for people here.
Up to the top is where I'm headed and I'm going.
You know what? I've checked out some of the stuff already before doing this. I've been hyped and ready to do this because it's definitely being done on a major level. And, you know, I'm here seeing it in person right now and I'm like, wow, you know, this is what it is, man. I'm happy to be here.
This kind of concert series promotes music and gives us newcomers or even like new bands a big chance to showcase their talents and share their music with the world.
It's amazing that OMIC has organized this and given an opportunity for artists to perform, but also be part of something that I wouldn't be able to create this just on my own. So everybody's talents comes together to create something great.
It says a lot about the city that they are engaging the processes that get those musicians out and get them in front of people, and the music is getting heard. So we don't have a thing where like everybody's the best kept secret, right? We're sort of breaking through that wall a lot, and which is exactly what we need.
Well, first of all, I'm really grateful for this opportunity. For me, it's a little bit like being officially part of the local artist community in Ottawa. And it's like my first real big show where I'm gonna be performing my own songs, so it's really exciting.
What the hell's going on? Why you still holding on?
You know, it's a great opportunity for us artists to be able to really get a reach to an audience and a good quality audience too. I'm just happy that I can be involved. I'm happy that I can add value. It's top tier for sure.
It really is like a dream come true, especially having so many restrictions in the last couple of years, not being able to jam because we couldn't get together, and then to be able to do it in a beautiful venue like this with the seats in the background and just the whole entourage of it, and really feeling like we're able to put on a real show for the first time in a long time. It's just fantastic. It really is great.
Time to talk back.
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Take the COVID questionnaire. Day 2, okay? Day 2. Very passionate critics of the Ford government calling today. It's our COVID questionnaire, Day 2, because COVID is all over the news again, and it seems to be all over the community as well. I just want to ask you some questions. Have you had COVID? What was it like? How do you think you got it? Do you know other people who have had COVID-19? What was it like for them? You know, friends, family, whatever the case. And given the increase in cases, given the increase in hospitalizations, what do you want officials to do? What do you want officials to do? Dr. Uni says it's every bit as bad as the fifth wave. And during the fifth wave, we had lockdown measures put into effect here in the province of Ontario, you'll remember. Diane in Nepean. Thanks for calling, Diane. You're on City News.
Oh, hi, Rob. How are you?
I'm good, Diane. How are you?
Pretty good, thank you.
That's good. Have you had COVID?
No, but
No? Okay.
I do know people that have had COVID, and
Yeah.
my mother-in-law passed away in May 2020.
Oh, no. From COVID, or?
Yeah, she was in a nursing home.
Oh, my goodness. I'm sorry to hear that.
So it's been, for 2 years we've been dealing with it.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I just want to say in the news, and like they don't really express how COVID is a disease. Coronavirus is a disease, not a fluke type of thing. It's here for, it's in your system, and you don't really know how long before any kind of like problems, like they're talking about, diabetes in children and adults, erectile dysfunction. Like, what about all the boys, later in life, finding that there's going to be a problem?
Oh, really? Really? There are long-term effects like that.
That's right. And I don't really hear people saying that it's a disease. And so I think, letting people know it's a disease and having them decide how they're going to protect themselves from this disease.
Okay. So given what's happening right now, so many cases, people are concerned about the number of people in the hospital. What should officials do? Do you think, for example, should they have a mask?
The mask mandates back in place.
You do? Okay.
We've been home. My children do online schooling, and my husband works from home.
Okay.
I'm a stay-at-home mom, and, and I read the news. And to be honest, I saw this coming like 2 weeks ago with the wastewater numbers going up.
Right.
And, people saying, well, there's only 10 people in the hospital, but you just need to look like in Scotland and the UK and all places around the world. And, the percentage of the Ottawa population in hospital is like very, very low. I think the problem with the hospital is that they don't have the capacity because, it's at 100% now for the acute beds. So they don't have the capacity if there was some, God forbid, some tragedy or accident.
Yeah, we're doing a big interview about hospital capacity, by the way, after the 11 o'clock news. All the best, Diane. Thank you for your call.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, with Robyn Doolittle from the Globe and Mail, took a deep dive on that a few days ago in the Globe and Mail. And she's going to join us. Really important reporting there. Michael in Orleans, you're on City News. Good morning.
Good morning. Based on the last phone call, I have to switch gears, so your screener is going to be a little surprised. I have to switch gears here.
All right.
I've had COVID. It was very mild. It was really nothing. But I'm going to say, we missed the point of this.
Okay.
It got politicized. It bifurcated society into mask or no mask or vaccinated and not vaccinated. The point of this, if anyone wants to believe in a mother nature, was to keep yourself in shape, do not be obese, and have your vitamin D and take care of yourselves. No one's talking about that. No one is talking about the shot that was fired across our bow as a collective society. 78% of deaths of COVID were overweight or obese people. But no one is talking about this fact. And if you want to lock everyone down again, for what? This thing's not going away. And if you take care of yourself, it's not a deadly disease. And by the way, it's not a disease, it's a virus.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Yeah, it didn't really answer any of my questions. Craig, but that's okay. Craig in Chelsea. Craig.
Thanks. I think the government's doing reasonably well with the current, no guidance, but no mandates. I'm in Quebec. We have a mandate for masks, and our hospitalization rates are going up at the same rate as in Ontario. So
right.
Most people are choosing to keep masking, so I don't see a big issue. And I kind of think, it's people are going to get it sooner or later. It just
you think
at some point
it's inevitable. It's inevitable. You have this sense of inevitability. A lot of people are like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in the States, they've been what? They've been going crazy for a year now or whatever, and they're not even having a sixth wave at all. So.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
Well, I looked at. That's on the latest data I've seen. There's. If you look at the reported cases, which who knows how well they do at reporting them.
Right.
They're not seeing any spike at all in cases. They're continuing to drop since wave 5 in the States. Anyway.
Okay. I don't know. I'm trying to keep up on a day-to-day basis with just the situation in Ottawa, let alone what's happening, in various places in the United States. But you think we should, pretty much stay the course then, Craig?
Watch hospitalizations.
Watch the hospitalizations.
If it gets bad, I guess we'll have to go back into some sort of measures. But in the past, whenever the viral wastewater count went up, it's hospitals have followed fairly closely. But this time, that doesn't seem to be the case. Wastewater's way up. and hospitalizations, they've gone up a little bit, but nothing like in the past. So keep an eye on it, I guess.
Keep an eye on it. Okay, Craig, thank you. Thank you. Okay, 750-1310 Rob Snow Show on City News.
There we go.
Hey, going back in, okay?
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
I love to make abundance boards. And why do I call them abundance boards? Because they're an abundance of all the things that you love together. There's no rhyme or reason, there's no rules. It's literally about taking a whole bunch of different ingredients and making them into something that you love, that you can snack on. Maybe curl up on the couch and have a snack night. Charcuterie is all about a meat plate. And antipasti is all about a little bit of meat, a little bit of fruit, and a little bit of snack that you might have at the beginning of a meal, like an appetizer. I like to take all of these concepts and kind of mesh them together. It's kind of like a work of art because you're creating something delicious, but you're also creating something that looks super fancy, like from a gourmet style restaurant, but just using simple things you have.
Ottawa is a very political city, and it's not just political with the people in Parliament. You got street politics, you got business politics, you got basketball politics, and if you don't know how to navigate the systems, you get left behind. I did. They thought I went crazy. They thought I was dead. I was. But it's never too late to heal, to rebuild, to reinvent yourself. Prezi.
Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, April 7th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 5 degrees. In Smiths Falls, 7. Here's what's making news this hour. Ukraine's foreign minister says he is cautiously optimistic some NATO member countries will increase their weapons supplies to his country, helping it resist Russia's invasion. He urged swift decision and action. He was speaking after the talks this morning in Brussels with NATO foreign ministers. He did decline to say which countries would be providing more equipment or what kind of equipment it would be. There's been a jump in the number of cases of COVID being treated in Ontario hospitals today, with 4,224 more cases. That is almost 800 more than yesterday. Those in hospital who need treatment for COVID went up by close to 50, and the number in ICU did drop slightly. It comes as Ontario opens the portal to second booster shots to people over the age of 60, Indigenous people and their families, and high-risk people. Your appointment must be made at least 5 months following your first booster shot. That would have been after your third dose of vaccine. City News has a team in the budget lockup today. We're waiting for the Finance Minister, Chrystia Freeland, to deliver the document in the House of Commons late this afternoon. This document will have to juggle Liberal promises to voters, NDP agreement to keep the Liberals in power, so things like housing affordability, pharmacare and dental care, but it also has to look to Canada's NATO allies, ratcheting up defense spending. City News Time, 10:33. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
We're talking about COVID-19 here for the second day in a row. It's a major news story. I asked you these questions yesterday. Have you had COVID-19? What was it like? How do you think you got it? Do you know others who have got it? How did they do with it? And given this increase in cases, hospitalization, should officials do anything? Or should we stay the course? the Ontario government, the Ford government, is basically saying, keep calm, relax. We have it all under control. We have lots of space in the hospitals. That's what the government claims. 3,000 ICU beds at the ready. The critics, and there are many, you've heard them this morning, they counter that whole thing by saying, look, it's one thing to have beds, and say, we have 3,000 beds. It's quite another to have staff. Do you have staff? As with previous waves, oftentimes healthcare workers are the first to be down for the count because they're on the front lines. And, they test positive, they get sick, or someone around them gets sick, whatever the case might be. They can't come into work. Staffing shortages leading to even more pressure and more burnout in the healthcare system. And how many waves of this do we expect our frontline workers to deal with? What are your views here? Again, and we can start with some of those basic questions. And I thank you for taking part this morning. I really do. Phil in Orleans, you're on City News. Good morning.
How you doing, Rob?
I'm good, Phil. How are you?
Good.
Good. Glad to hear.
I'm looking over this whole situation. I'll start with my niece in B.C. has caught COVID 3 times.
Wow.
The first time it wasn't too bad. She caught it again. She ended up in the hospital. And then she caught it again for a 3rd time, and she was in the hospital again.
Oh, my God.
And about a month ago, her whole family came down with COVID.
Right.
So it's not something you can brush under the rug, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
And another disturbing piece of information is in China. At this moment, there's 250 million people in lockdown, and that's a lot of people. Okay? So we have to prepare, I think, for what's coming.
Okay.
And masks.
Is it that many? Is it that many? 250 million people in China are under lockdown?
Yes.
I know Shanghai is under lockdown. I've seen these videos.
And, Hong Kong. And assorted other provinces.
Okay. Well, I have seen these videos on social media. They have these, they're like drones, and they're like going through some of them are flying, some of them are robots that kind of like go down the streets, and they have these loudspeakers, and they're telling you, stay in your home, don't open the windows. Like it looks dystopian, actually. It's very dystopian.
I'm 60, and geez, I'm so glad that I can hopefully get my 4th dose in the next month.
Right. Okay.
Just to give me a peace of mind.
Yeah. Now that's been the big move from the government, is the push on the 4th doses. Do you think they should be doing anything else in government right now?
Well, like I said, masks.
Masks. Okay.
I don't fault Ford for too many things because he's been pretty sturdy, but I think that it might have been a tad early on releasing the restrictions for the masks, only by a week or two.
Right.
But people, are more or less adhering to this as, you, I'm sure, and everybody else looking in grocery stores and that. Everybody's wearing a mask.
Yeah. I see almost no change in society here in Ottawa with mask wearing.
Yeah.
But I'm not the most social person. But thank you, Phil, for sharing your thoughts, Phil. 750-1310. Marco in Carleton Place. Marco, good morning. You're on City News.
Good morning, Rob. First-time caller, long-time listener.
I appreciate that, Marco.
I've had a few friends of mine that have come down with COVID and their children. Nothing more than 3-4 days of discomfort. Let's call it the average flu.
Okay. Is this recently, Marco, or that they've come down with it, or?
Yeah, within the last 3 months.
Oh, I see. Okay. But largely mild, you would say. Mild?
Yeah.
Mild? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Lasted no more than a week?
No, 3-4 days.
3-4 days, okay.
Like a mild flu, a little more discomfort than your average cold.
Right, right. And they've recovered and everybody's doing okay?
Yeah, back to work, business as usual.
Yeah. You never had it?
No.
Knock on wood?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm unvaccinated. Two of my roommates one has 3 shots, the other has 2 vaccines.
Yeah.
And knock on wood, no issues.
That's good. That's
but
good.
They've been ill a couple of times. Sometimes hard to say if it's the flu, just feeling unwell. And I have yet to have any symptoms or anything like
good.
that.
I hope it stays that way for you, Marco. So, look, Dr. Uni yesterday, and he's one of the top scientists in Ontario on this COVID-19. Advises the government. He says 100 to 120,000 cases a day. Hospitalizations are on the rise. Should the government be doing anything, do you think, Marco, or should the government stay the course? What do you think right now?
I think for the time being, we should stay the course. I mean, sooner or later, we have to dip our toe in the water and somewhat live with COVID.
Yes, okay.
It's, as you mentioned, most places I go, big box stores, a lot of people are still wearing their masks. At one point, we can't keep, as you know, shutting down businesses and limits. At one point, it'll make too much damage to the economy.
Okay. Thank you for calling, Marco.
You're welcome,
and for listening. Yeah, all the best. Up next is Nancy in Westport. Good morning, Nancy.
Hi, good morning,
Hi,
Rob.
Nancy.
I've first-time caller here.
Wow, first-time caller.
Yeah,
Great.
so-
Love to hear it.
Sorry?
I love to hear that.
Yeah.
Have you had COVID?
I have. Actually,
have?
I'm going to answer your 3 questions here. So my son actually got COVID back in August. He had the Delta variant confirmed. We were in his face not realizing he had it. We did not. My husband and I did not get it. And then in January, my husband and I got COVID, assuming it was the Omicron, but we didn't get that verified. But we did take the blood test afterwards to confirm that, in fact, we had COVID antibodies, so we did have COVID. So all of us had flu-like symptoms. I've had the flu before. I know what that's like. So joint pain, feeling tired and things like that. So we just looked after ourselves and got over it, I'd say, in 3 or 4 days.
Okay. And you totally recovered, no lingering effects or anything like that? No? No? Okay.
Yeah, we're all recovered, yeah.
Well, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think should happen here where it seems to be everywhere, COVID right now?
I'm not a supporter of Doug Ford, but I do agree that we should stay the course. I think this pandemic's becoming endemic. I think that's what happens with viruses, is that eventually we have to live with it, and I think the variants are going to get less and less severe. The one thing I would say, though, in terms of this mask mandate, I don't agree with it, and largely because I'm a retired nurse, and when it comes to masks, the only effective mask is a fitted N95 mask, which I had to do as a nurse working in the operating room. We had to be fitted for our N95 mask it's kind of a rigorous test. It takes about 15 minutes to make sure that mask fits appropriately. So all these masks we're seeing people wearing of various kinds, homemade, whatever, even the ear loop masks, I did a number of studies on that in the operating room. The ear loop masks are not a good fit. They're letting out the aerosolization that will spread it. So I'm against the mask mandate as it stands. If everyone wants to wear
Because you don't think it does anything?
No, absolutely not. Not the way it's being practiced today in our society. Nope.
Okay. All right, Nancy, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Glad you're well. Bye-bye. Yep. Derek in Ottawa. Derek, you're on City News.
Hey, Rob. Yeah, my family had COVID last fall, I guess, so that would have been the Delta virus because Omicron hadn't even been heard of by that time.
Right.
I'm in a unique situation because I have 8 kids, so there's 10 of us that live here. The oldest kid is 21, youngest is 4, and it was really interesting. Like, I'm 52. My wife and I, we were sick for maybe, 5-6 days. It was crappy. Like, we were in bed. We were just lethargic, whatever.
Yeah.
But I never felt like I was about to meet my maker or anything. I didn't feel like I was going to die. It was just a bad flu.
Okay.
But my little kids, like I know everybody had it, but the little kids were like, oh, I have a bit of a headache, like for an afternoon type thing, and they were still running around giggling and stuff. So I did find the age really affected it. Like the young kids, it was a nothing burger, all the way up to the teens. The teens were sick for maybe 2-3 days, and then my wife and I were sick for, as they say, 5-6 days, whatever. So, you know, and then it was done.
And then it was done. No lingering effects, nothing like that?
No,
okay.
like the previous caller said, erectile dysfunction. No, none of that. Nothing like that.
Yeah, too much information. But nevertheless, what should happen now?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Okay. Let me rephrase that. Maybe for older people, again, I talked about this before. Maybe offering delivery service or opening the stores an hour early or something.
With you. Yeah.
But John Hopkins did a study, and it said all of these mandates is absolutely nothing. So it's just making the Chicken Littles feel the sky is falling. We're doing something even though it does nothing. Like John Hopkins did a study, and it said it had an infinitesimally small effect. All these lockdowns and everything did nothing. So why go back to it?
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Yep. Actually, we have to stop. And then we'll be back with the final quarter. On the Rob Snow Show Talkback Hour, this is City News.
My name is Tamara Rudenko Karalambi. I'm a member of the Ukrainian Orthodox Parish here, and I'm also a member of the Ukrainian Women's Association of Canada, Ottawa branch. Today, we are here to prepare for tomorrow's workshop, the Ukrainian Easter egg decorating workshop. Ukrainian Easter egg decorating is a beautiful art, and it is something that has been passed on through the generations. Ukrainian Easter eggs are known as pisanki, and these wonderful chicken eggs are transformed into a little piece of personal art. Pisanki are symbols of life, are something that go back 2,000 years, and the symbols that were used at that time were elements that represented health, prosperity, fertility. So these are really important to us to celebrate today as we are moving into spring and celebrating the coming of spring. We want to take the opportunity to practice this tradition, which is very typical of the changing of the season from winter to spring. They also symbolize protection. And in today's world, it is very important for us to protect our planet, to protect our values of freedom and democracy. And these wonderful little pisanki are symbols of hope and symbols of peace. So the mantra is peace, pisankas for peace, and pisankas for protection. The more we can write, the more eggs we decorate, the stronger our spirit is, and we are sending those messages of goodwill to Ukraine, where people are struggling with a horrific Russian invasion. They are struggling to protect their land, struggling to protect their families, and we believe that this gesture, which may be a moment of light, brings hope to people, not only here in Ottawa and our own families, but across the lands and across the ocean to a much needed country.
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
And remember, tomorrow is the Friday Free-for-All Talkback Hour. So if this topic has not been for you, you can bring up any topic tomorrow during the Friday Free-for-All. But we're talking about COVID-19, the latest situation, and this is the second day in a row we've been on this topic. Rodney has called in. Good morning, Rodney. You're on City News.
Hi.
Hi, Rodney. Have you ever had COVID, Rodney?
No, I've been lucky I haven't had it.
Good for you.
I've actually done a lot of work at trying to avoid it.
Okay. Like what?
Reducing my
your contacts,
in and around people,
being around people.
You know, wearing a mask. Lately, I've upgraded to an N95 mask.
Yeah.
Hey, and then there was interest of information from a couple of callers back that she mentioned N95s and the masking thing, and I mentioned it in the past, shortcoming of the government for not educating people continually and upgrading the education on masking. And, you know, I got a whole bunch of different sort of points written down here from different comments that, you know, people have made, but one of the comments that nobody has made, one that I want to get back to would be the mask and the medical people, but the appointment of Dr. Kieran Moore.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. What about it?
It seems like he got replaced, or he replaced somebody else that was...
Dr. David Williams. Yeah.
Okay. And just... How do we get to this? For some reason, it seems to be a political appointment. I would be more comfortable if the appointment was made by all the doctors that were in charge of all the different regional areas. Okay. And they oversee, you know, what the doctor is doing, the information, and what the province is doing. So just on my comment on that thought frame, you know, all the local doctors that are in charge that have been interviewed on your show and on Sam's show, they've all said masking and watch your distance. You know?
Which is pretty basic. We're like back to where we were 2 years ago.
But we're not back to where we were 2 years ago, because now when you go into the stores, there's 10 or 20% that aren't wearing masks, and there's another 10% that, you know, maybe they had a tracheotomy that they got to wear it or over their throat type thing, you know. And then this is one of the points that I wanted to get to. It's the doctor that did Japalooza, her son.
Oh, Japapalooza, yeah.
Okay, her son works at a pharmacy, and the comment that I read in the paper was, you know, her son got COVID. People started coming into the store, you know, without masks on. Her son got COVID. She got COVID, and guess what? She's not out there working.
That's
now,
right. Yeah.
You know, and then think of all the people that are working in the hospitals. This is something else that has been continually mentioned. You know, the sixth wave. You know, You don't want to lose them. You want to keep them. But not only that, you want to keep the supervisors and the people that are department heads that have worked there for a long time, that have, you know, good working skills with their staff and overseeing.
So you would be in favor of bringing the mask mandate back, I think, Rodney, right?
You know, absolutely.
As long as people use them right, because you've complained about that in the past, that people weren't properly wearing them and that they weren't sanitizing their hands as often as they should be, these kinds of things. Thanks for the call, Rodney. We'll speak soon. Ian in Brockville, you're on City News. Ian.
Well, hey, stranger.
Well, hello. Yes. Good to hear from you. Have you ever had COVID-19?
No, thankfully not. I've touched wood. I've been healthy for the better part of a decade now, not even a cold.
Well, that's good for you. Do you know anybody who has had it? Or?
Yes, actually, I'd say about a good half dozen that I could actually verify, and then you have the rest that are all hearsay. I guess the primary ones would be my frontline retirement home workers and nurses that I know. They're all, you know, ages between mid-20s and mid-30s. Interestingly enough, both my parents, one works at a wine shop, and the other one works at Winners. And they have both managed to, you know, they're in their late 50s, have both managed to avoid it. So that's pretty handy.
Yeah.
But,
okay. And the people that you know who had it, do you know what their experience was with it, Ian?
Yes. Actually, surprisingly enough, there was only about one that I heard was pretty bad, and she was down sick with her young lad there, for just homesick, nothing too terrible.
Yeah.
The other ones, for the most part, just, I would say, you know, stage 1 symptoms, just, you know, kind of basically common cold, light entrance to a flu type things. Ironically enough, actually, my house cleaner was over here. She's a palliative care worker, and she got COVID, tested positive for COVID less than 40 minutes after she left my place. So me and my good friend had to lock down in my house, and we got lucky and escaped it. And she had very minor. So
right. So it's all over the news. And COVID seems to be all over the community again. So what should officials do?
Well, I'm going to get a little mousy here, and I am going to say, we all know I know I'm a right-sided things kind of guy, but something I don't think people are touching on that comes after the election and after, regardless of your standpoint on whether or not it's a political play and blah, 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 blah. I would almost think that the future is going to be kind of based on the past, whether you want to base it on the convoy, some of these experiences we hear in shops with face masks getting torn off and stuff. You know me, I like to sit on the fence most of the time, but I can't help but ponder what's going to happen if the mask mandates do come back, because I don't think that's going. I'm concerned about that not fitting well with a certain group of individuals out there. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, lived through it. I believe it's called, let me think, February. Yeah, that was February, right? Paul. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Paul. Have you had COVID, Paul?
Well, actually, the timing's perfect because I just tested positive.
Oh, no. How do you feel?
Actually, yeah. But actually, I wanted to just kind of relate. Maybe it's interesting, our experiences, because I think we can sort of trace pretty much what happened with some certainty, because my son and my wife and I are kind of cooped up in our home, but my son went down to, when they relaxed things and going out restrictions, my son went down to Toronto 2 weekends ago to go out on the town with some of his friends, and he came back. That was a Saturday night, and then he came back and started showing cold symptoms on Tuesday, and we have all these rapid tests from Sobeys that we pick up. So we thought, well, let's start testing.
Right.
And the one thing that I was a bit surprised at, because I watch too much news, and I don't remember anybody talking about this, but our experience was he tested negative even when he was showing like congestion, not fever, but a lot of fatigue and body aches and headache. Tuesday, Wednesday, even Thursday, and he didn't test positive with the rapid test until Thursday evening, and that kind of threw us off because we thought, well, it's just a cold that he got, right? Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to mention that my impression is that with the rapid test, you kind of have to build the COVID up in your body before it actually detects it. So he was actually showing cold symptoms that turned out to be COVID several days before that, and we were getting negative results.
Right. Yeah. Okay. How do you feel?
I'm just exhausted. I really, the fatigue is the main thing.
Okay.
And but aside from that, touch wood, we'll ride it through. Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear it in your voice. Yeah. You have a sore throat or anything, or a cough or anything, Paul? Or?
No, it's no? Well, the odd thing is I have asthma.
Okay.
And almost any time I get a cold, it settles in my chest. For some reason, COVID that is supposed to go there hasn't done that with me yet. Touch wood. Right. But it's primarily the fatigue. My son had a lot of fatigue. My dad, when he got it, he was in at Sunnybrook Hospital in Toronto for a broken hip, and he got it. And it was extreme fatigue again. From our experience, that was probably the main symptom.
The main symptom. Okay, very interesting. Okay, look, all the best to you, sir.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thanks for calling. Yeah, get well. Yeah, bye-bye.
Thanks, bye.
Yeah, bye. Don't do anything more strenuous than call the Rob Snow Show. Friday free-for-all talkback hours tomorrow, of course. Robyn Doolittle on surge, capacity, and funding for Canadian hospitals. Robyn Doolittle's with the Globe and Mail. Coming up next, this is City News.
one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, April 7th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 5 degrees. In Smiths Falls, 7. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Ontario's opposition parties are calling for a return to masking.
Ontario's Liberal leader, Stephen Del Duca, is today calling for a return to mandatory masking in essential indoor settings like schools, grocery stores, and pharmacies. And he says masking requirements shouldn't end at the end of the month as planned for places like long-term care homes and transit. John Fraser.
The advice that we were given from the science table is that we need to mask. And if we don't, we're risking what was described as a tidal wave.
The premiers described the current COVID situation as a, quote, little spike, but there's plenty of signs now the sixth-wave trajectory is much bigger than that. Meantime, still no sign of Dr. Moore. The Liberals are calling for him to talk to the media again.
I believe that the government is muzzling Dr. Moore.
He hasn't been heard from in 4 weeks. Richard Southern, City News.
City News time, 11:01, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Rainfall warning continues for Ottawa, the Valley, Smiths Falls. We've already reached our high for the day. We'll sit at about 8 degrees this afternoon. Strong wind tonight, more rain, the low near 3. And tomorrow, periods of light rain with the high near 10. For today, already reached the high for the day. For the afternoon, near 8.
And right now in Ottawa, 5 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it's 7. Ukraine's foreign minister told the NATO meeting in Brussels today his agenda is very simple.
I came here with a simple message. My agenda for the discussion had only 3 items. It's weapons, weapons, and weapons.
Dmytro Kuleba says the more weapons his country gets, the sooner they arrive in Ukraine, the more human lives are going to be saved. City News time, 11:02. Shovels in the ground this spring for new pavilion at Westboro Beach. National Capital Commission Board approving the design of the building. Now, while the beach area will be closed for the entire summer, the NCC believes this pavilion will create a more vibrant and active space, which improves the area not only for visitors but residents as well. Westboro Beach will have a restaurant and community space, also outdoor showers, children's play area, and a historic interpretation center. It will open in the summer of 2023. Also at the NCC board meeting today, a discussion on LeBreton Flats just getting underway. The board says it will get a progress update on various projects, but will not present anything from interested parties on any major attractions for that land. There was speculation earlier this week the meeting would include word on a proposed arena. Only one Ottawa City Councillor took up a challenge from Acorn. The group looks out for low and moderate income families across the country, and it challenged Ottawa councillors to go a single day without the internet. The group says it's very difficult for anyone today to manage living without affordable internet. Acorn says other than Riley Brockington, though, no other councillor agreed to the challenge. That group has organized a rally to back their call. It's underway now at City Hall. City News time, 11:03. Kayakers on the Petawawa River discovered the body of a missing woman. They were on the river about 7 last night when they came across the body of a woman who had been reported missing just last month. Upper Ottawa Valley OPP says foul play is not suspected in the death of 36-year-old Sarah Shanklin. It's believed she drowned. She had been reported missing on March 24th. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Surge capacity. How many times have you heard that over the past 2 years? We must impose these measures because we need capacity in our hospitals. But a lack of capacity in Canadian hospitals is nothing new. And according to a deep dive in the April 2nd Globe and Mail, in-depth reporting from Tom Cardoso and Robyn Doolittle, the capacity issues in our hospitals are going to outlast the pandemic. Robyn Doolittle from the Globe and Mail joins me this morning, stuck in traffic on the 401. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm okay. I hope you're well. Thanks for taking the time.
I'm good. I'm bored. This is
Okay,
perfect.
that's good. Okay, so we see today here in Ottawa, the acute care hospitals, this information is now reported on a daily basis because it's part of the COVID-19 information package from our local public health agency, that the Ottawa area hospitals, the acute care hospitals, they're almost at 100% capacity right now. They're routinely at 100% capacity. What was the situation like with capacity in Canadian hospitals generally before the pandemic?
Well, that's exactly the point. They were at something like 95% capacity before the pandemic. This story began as an effort to try to answer the question, how is it that in a province like Ontario with more than 14 million residents, a few thousand extra unexpected sick people could throw the whole system into crisis? Then the story, as often happens, the reporting took us in a very different direction. I had always heard that the healthcare system in Canada was broken, but before working on this, I had no idea just how broken and dysfunctional it is. And the pandemic did not cause this. It has just finally forced us to think about it.
Yeah. It seems that one of the issues is that we don't have one healthcare system. We have really 13 healthcare systems, and even within those 13 healthcare systems, all 13 are fragmented to certain degrees because it's a provincial responsibility. Healthcare is a provincial responsibility. How does this fragmentation complicate things?
So this was the big thing that I had never fully appreciated before. Yes, exactly as you mentioned, Canada doesn't have a healthcare system. It has 13 different provincial and territorial models. Within those models, there are hospital-based systems, there are regional systems, then there's primary care, your family physician. We've got, pharmacies, long-term care, rehab facilities, the list goes on and on. And what I didn't appreciate was that they're all siloed off. They're all, in many places, their own little entity with their own budgets, their own management, their own hierarchies, their own goals. None of this is integrated or connected. One physician put it to me in a way that really kind of crystallized the issue. He said, Canada has never had a comprehensive public health care system. What we have is an insurance system. What Medicare did was change where the bill was sent. It had nothing to do with keeping the population healthy, keeping people out of hospitals, or making any effort to integrate what was already there. So you can imagine the outcomes as a patient. You're bouncing between sometimes, half a dozen different entities, a mix of public and private, having to repeat your story over and over again, all the overhead that goes with different doctors, healthcare workers having to catch up on your case, transfer your files, and no one's watching the collective bill count at the end of it. So that's why our system is so inefficient and not great for patients.
There are also people in the acute care hospital setting, which is the most expensive care there is to be in an acute care hospital on a daily basis, thousands of dollars a day. They don't belong there. They don't belong in an acute care hospital. There used to be a term called bed blockers. I never liked that term. The fact is, they were in the acute care hospital because other aspects, other portions of this healthcare system that we have are full too. Maybe they belong in a long-term care home, but they've been waiting for a year, maybe longer, for a bed in a long-term care home or a room in a long-term care home. Or they would be better served in their own home and receive some kind of home care. So how much of a problem is that?
Well, this is exactly an example of why our system is so dysfunctional. There's estimated that something like either 1 in 5 or 1 in 6, depending on the time of year, acute care hospital beds in Ontario are occupied by these alternate level care patients, ALDs, sometimes called bed blockers, which is not a nice term, of course. They're often elderly people. They no longer need to be in hospital, but there's no place for them to go because they still need some care. They still need a little bit of help, maybe getting, food or just someone watching them. And it's much more expensive for the system to have them in a hospital. It's something like $500 of them in a hospital bed, and it would be $150 a day to have them in a long-term care facility, or much less to have them in the home with some support. But because the system doesn't work together, whose job is it to take the financial hit to build the capacity? And this is, just one example replicated across the country. I'm curious, just thinking of your listeners hearing this right now, I'm sure many people are feeling kind of defensive because Canadians just are conditioned. We're so proud of our universal season that we don't want to hear. This is something that Tom and I heard over and over again from experts is a major barrier to progress, that because we just are constantly comparing ourselves to the United States, which has a completely different healthcare system, we can't look to other universal systems that are working much better for residents.
Yeah. But that's tradition when it comes to any discussion about even approaching reform for the healthcare system, is that, well, we love to compare ourselves to the Canadian system. It's a cultural thing. When you were digging deep into this, what stood out for you as big differences in hospital care specifically when it comes to patient care?
I think the message that I heard over and over again is you can't kind of take one thing like hospital care, but that is how our system is currently set up, that it focuses on hospitals. Interestingly, Medicare passed as a hospital insurance program. So when you think of, this is another thing. We think we have universal health care. 30% of Canadian health care is privately funded. You think of mental health services. Why is mental health not covered? It's not because it wouldn't be good for society or the economy or the healthcare overall budget to have this type of care, expensive care covered. It would be probably cheaper overall. But it wasn't censored in this hospital location. We'll cover mental health if someone comes into a hospital, but once they leave, they're on their own. So, I think it's all integrated, that we really need to bring everything under the same umbrella. We talked about to doctors about this bundled care model where, let's say you're in a car accident, there's one, or getting a knee surgery, there's one envelope of money that follows you around all these different, treatments that you're going to need. You're going to need your primary care, you're going to need your hospital, you're going to need rehab after. Right now it's all separate, and we need to bring it all under the same thing because healthcare is not just in a hospital.
Okay. So here right now with the sixth wave focuses again on capacity in the hospitals. Premier Ford is saying, look, keep calm. We have lots of spare capacity now in our hospitals. We have 3,000 beds. His critics will say, well, 3,000 beds is fine, but what about the staff for the beds? What have been the trends with staffing, with doctors, with nurses? What are the human resources trends here in healthcare in Canada, Robyn?
So you bring up a really good point. When people talk about, hospital capacity, ICU capacity, acute care capacity, overall bed capacity, a bed is just a bed until there's people on it, and also to an extent the equipment needed, whether it's ventilators or medicines, etc. So right now there is a massive staffing shortage of nurses and other healthcare workers, particularly nurses. Part of it is nurses are leaving, not necessarily the nursing profession, but they're transferring out of ERs or ICUs to less stressful jobs. If you can imagine, nurses have been working basically double time, overtime under the most stressful conditions imaginable for 2 years, and there's no end in sight. This isn't going to end anytime soon, and now we're hitting another wave. So in the piece that we did, I spent some time at Hamilton General Hospital, and at one point during the Omicron wave, that hospital network in Hamilton had 761 of their staff and physicians in isolation because they'd had a COVID exposure or were sick themselves. So it's people leaving, it's burnout, and then it's also just they themselves are getting sick. So, I mean, I think what we also heard is the number one crisis in the short term is staffing, finding ways to keep nurses in jobs, giving them support that they need to make it work, trying to recruit more, trying to get more people in school, more graduating classes, and that's kind of the short-term crisis. And then once this kind of subsides and we're looking forward, when we can address this more structural issue.
Yeah, and we'll have no choice because the demographics are not our friend.
Right.
What pressures are coming because of pure demographics?
Well, this is the thing that people just kept reinforcing is that, okay, the pandemic has forced us to talk about capacity. When the pandemic is done, it's going to get worse because the population is aging and life expectancy rates are climbing and chronic disease is growing as well. People are living longer with serious illnesses. So by 2031, all of the baby boomers will be senior citizens. You know, back in the 1970s, when there were higher bed capacity ratios, people died of things that they live with now for decades. And this is a huge medical success story, but it's very expensive to keep people alive with chronic illnesses. And we have not adjusted to that reality at all as a society. That, you know, it's not just keeping pace with population growth, but understanding that the needs in the system are different now.
Thank you so much. Important reporting from you and your colleague. Thank you for joining me.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.
Speak soon. Robyn Doolittle from the Globe and Mail. 11:17. When we come back, the Masters underway. Tiger is on the course. Tiger Woods is playing the Masters. Adam Stanley's with the Canadian Press, golf writer with the Canadian Press. He'll join me next on round one of the Masters. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Calling, change with warning. Oh, I won't win anything if I give everything.
I was so excited when I found out that I was given this grant to be able to make this concert because I knew it was going to be the first opportunity that I was able to play these songs for others. You know, this album was recorded really, truly in isolation. Like everybody else, we were locked down for a bit. So you're going to see, I think, the joy of playing live, of being together.
For me, as someone who owns a business in Ottawa that's directly working with music, I own a recording studio, it is important because it gives a sense of confidence in terms of having support from a lot of different places. We all know in Canada, there are all kinds of city, provincial, and federal people who provide funding for artists, and just seeing how invested Ottawa is and expanding the reputation of Ottawa as a music and entertainment city, running a business in that city, it makes you just feel better that someone's going to support you, help you, and have your back.
Well, firstly, I'm seeing friends that I haven't seen in 2 years, so that is kind of stabbing me in the heart a little bit, but I'm also just so happy to be able to make art with all of these friends again. And I've been treated like an absolute rock star from the moment I just kind of knocked on the door and said, hey, can I unload my gear? Everybody's so helpful, and you're just used to kind of dragging all your stuff around, and it's such a hard business to be in. So this is a dream come true for any local artist who gets to participate in a series like this.
Oh, I feel like I need to keep pinching myself. It's an amazing experience and opportunity for us, so thank you so much. It's been a long couple months. Our last show was in December. This is the first time we've actually been in the same room together since. So it's really an amazing opportunity for us and the beautiful theater, and to have Rogers here, and thank you, Oh Mike, and so it's a dream come true.
I'm here with one of my best friends, Alex, and we haven't performed in almost 2 years because of COVID. And it feels really good to be back on a big stage like Meridian, and I'm really honored that you guys invited me here today.
Having an organization that lets the artists
do their thing with such a range of styles and influence, and to kind of have that ability to meet the public and to meet the people who would listen to them can't be overstated. So super excited about it. I know a lot of musicians in town and a lot of music lovers in town who are really excited about it too. So I mean, it's an event of which there's talk, there's a lot of buzz around it, and I wouldn't be surprised if it goes on for a long time and does a lot of great things for local musicians and connecting them with the listeners that love them.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Many doubted we'd ever see it. But here it is. The return to glory.
This is an NBC News special report. Here's Lester Holt.
Good day, everyone. We're coming on the air with breaking news. It has to do with golf superstar Tiger Woods, who has been injured in a serious car accident in Palos Verdes, California, just outside Los Angeles.
Tiger Woods has been involved in a serious car crash. As you can see here, the LA sheriff says Tiger Woods was involved in a single vehicle rollover, traffic collision, and had to be extricated with the jaws of life.
A single vehicle rollover accident outside of Los Angeles. Tiger was extracted from the car using the jaws of life. He was taken to a local hospital.
It was excessive speed that nearly killed Tiger Woods. Investigators say the golfing great was traveling between 84 to 87 miles per hour. At 75 miles per hour, Woods struck a tree, sending his SUV airborne. He never hit the brakes. Woods says he hopes to play golf again, but will never be the same player he used to be.
As far as playing at the tour level, I don't know when that's going to happen. We're talking about going out there playing against the world's best.
When will you decide whether for sure you're playing, and what will determine that?
Well, as of right now, I feel like I am going to play. As of right now, I'm going to play 9 more holes tomorrow. My recovery has been good, so we've got another day of 9 more holes, and then come game time.
A tradition like no other. This will be a Masters like no other in Augusta, Georgia. And to talk about it, we're joined by golf writer Adam Stanley. Good morning.
Well, peace. I'm ready to run through a brick wall now. I'm excited.
Well, I mean, we don't have to revisit the whole saga, but it's quite incredible that Tiger Woods is playing in this. Just how improbable is this moment?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, even for the listeners who are casual sports fans, they probably don't even need to be a sports fan. They know who Tiger Woods is and probably what he's gone through. So 14 months ago, has this incredibly horrific car accident. His foot continues to be held together by rods and screws. He said repeatedly that the doctors who worked on him said that amputation of his leg was indeed on the table about 14 months ago, and now he's back playing the biggest golf tournament in the world at the most iconic golf course in the world. It's incredibly hilly. It's a difficult golf course to walk, but just before we jumped on this call, he teed off, he did it, he made a par on the very first hole, and now here we go. So a very improbable return, but I guess with Tiger Woods, you can never count him out.
Yeah. Realistically, what are his chances?
From a golfing standpoint, they're pretty good, but from the actual movement and the action from point A to B, up and down these hills, et cetera, that's where things are incredibly difficult. So this is a true one shot, one day at a time kind of scenario. If he makes the cut this week, I think that would be success. If he doesn't hurt himself anymore over 4 days, that would also be a success, because his body was in trouble before he got in this car accident, and now he's 46 years old. He's not getting any younger, and things are even harder to be able to do.
Okay. Outside of the Tiger story, which really is the story so far, who are some of the others to watch, in your opinion, right now, Adam?
Yeah, it's a good question because so many of us have been just engulfed in the Tiger story, and I think for good reason. There are 3 Canadians in the field this week: Mackenzie Hughes, Mike Weir, who of course won the Masters in 2003, and Corey Connors. And I like Corey as one of the notable names this week. He's finished in the top 2 at the last 2 Masters that have been contested. Wow. He's the top-ranked male golfer in this country, and he's just an absolutely elite ball striker. And this golf course is a golf course that often rewards ball strikers. So Corey's a big name to watch. World number 1, Scotty Scheffler. He's won 3 of his last 5 PGA Tour events. And Rory McIlroy as well. Rory's gunning for the career Grand Slam this week. He's chasing a bit of history. This is the 8th time that he's tried to complete the career Grand Slam. Hasn't quite won the green jacket, but he's back trying to give it one more go. So yes, Tiger Woods takes the cake for the storylines, but there's plenty of others, as per usual, at Augusta National.
Yeah. All right. It's prediction time. David, you making a call? My producer is here. We've been wrapped up in Tiger. I'm not picking Tiger. I'd be stunned if he made the cut, but you never know. You never know, right? But he's not my pick, but I want to hear your pick.
My pick this year is Jon Rahm.
Jon Rahm, okay, good one.
I think he's trending in the right direction.
Yep.
If he finds some magic, he can dismantle that golf course.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going with one of Tiger's good buddies. I'm going to say if Tiger can't win, then I think this guy's going to win, and it's Justin Thomas. That's who I'm picking for Masters champion. Are you making predictions, Adam Stanley?
Those are 2 good picks. Those are picks that a lot of people have thought about so far this week. Jon Rahm, I like that pick in particular, just because of form. You know, he's finished in the top 10 of the last 3 Masters and inside the top 10 in 3 of his last 4 majors. Justin Thomas is the only one that's getting Tiger's tips, so like him a lot as well. I would say Colin Morikawa. Add him to your trio of selections. Colin's won 2 of the last 7 majors that have been contested. You know, number 3 in the world, and doesn't really have that scar tissue around this golf course, and not yet in major championships that a lot of these other guys have. He kind of has said, this golf course fits me. I'm comfortable there. I'm excited about the opportunity, and already won 2 majors before turning 25 is a pretty good start to his career as well.
So. All right. Look, I know you're really busy this time of year. Thank you so much for taking some time for us. It's greatly appreciated. We really enjoy it.
No worries. Yeah. Happy spring and happy Masters week. Should be a good one.
Yep. Adam Stanley is a golf writer for the Canadian Press. Round 1 of the Masters underway. When we come back, right after the news, it's The World with Professor Elliot Tepper from Carleton University, our weekly look at world news headlines. Ukraine still in focus. This is The Rob Snow Show on City News.
news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, April 7th. Good morning, I'm Danielle Bain. Right now in Ottawa, it's 5 degrees, some light rain coming down. Over in Smiths Falls, temperature of 8. Here's what's making news this hour. City News has a team in the budget lockup today as we wait for the Finance Minister, Chrystia Freeland, to deliver the document in the House of Commons. The federal Conservatives say they want to see substantial tax cuts in today's budget. Interim Conservative leader Candice Bergen says the Liberal government must act to address the rapidly increasing cost of living and says they want to see a solution to what she calls the housing inflation crisis that has seen the average cost of a home roughly double over the past 7 years. The NCC Board of Directors meeting just wrapped up, and one of the approved motions during the meeting was a new design for the Westboro Beach Pavilion. The actual beach and the grassy hill will remain, but the current parking lot will be turned into a park area, and new lookouts, a picnic area, and beach volleyball courts are being added, as well as a new pavilion building. Construction begins this spring, with the beach and parking lot expected to be closed to the public throughout the summer. The NCC will also be launching LeBreton Flats' next development phase, called the Flats Phase, in June of 2022. The site will become a gateway to LeBreton Flats from Wellington Street and the Sir John A. Macdonald Parkway. And in sports, the Ottawa Senators take on the Nashville Predators at home tonight. Puck drop at 7 p.m. City News Time, 11:32. I'm Danielle Bain. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
It's time for The World with Professor Elliot Tepper, Distinguished Senior Fellow, Norman Paterson School, International Affairs at Carleton University. Good morning. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good morning, Rob.
Yep. I hope you're well these days, Professor. It's I know the listeners really appreciate your insight, and there's much to discuss. Of course, the world has been shocked and horrified by the scenes of potential massacres, war crimes, what the Ukrainian president has called genocide in Ukraine. The outskirts of Kiev. What's your thinking? Why don't we start right there? Your thinking upon reading the reports about the massacre of civilians in this war.
We are just beginning to get those reports, Rob. There's going to be a lot more just like them. The nature of the invasion, the nature of the behavior of those forces coming in, the Russians at this point, but there's also going to be Chechens and then the Wagner Group and Syrian mercenaries. We are faced with an unspeakable horror that we said would never happen again, and it's happening in front of us right now. The question of gathering data and getting accountability at some point in the future, that lies ahead. But right now we have to say, we are seeing this in real time in front of us, and what are we going to do about it?
The symbolism of V-Day for Putin, this is something I think is worth exploring with you this morning. Western officials are speculating that President Putin may be desperate for some kind of win by May 9th because it's deeply symbolic. That's when Russia traditionally celebrates the end of the Second World War with a big victory parade in Red Square. In the New York Times this morning, for example, this report: Mr. Putin would like to consolidate control of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions of eastern Ukraine and establish a land bridge to the Crimean Peninsula by early May, a senior Western intelligence official said. And Mr. Putin has also said, look, our goal is to, quote unquote, denazify Ukraine. So how significant, in your opinion, is that date, May 9th?
I think is very significant indeed. The speculation that he needs a victory and that he wants to declare it on that day is resonant. We should remind ourselves what that day is. We call it VE Day, Victory in Europe Day. This is the day when Nazi Germany was defeated. the official declaration of defeat, and that's what they're talking about. You've raised the question to me elsewhere. Do they feel like Russia? Do they feel like we don't understand and we don't appreciate what they did? And I think that's a correct assessment. They feel that the West has never understood the pain that they had to carry, particularly the siege of Leningrad, symbolic.
I believe we have lost.
Organized to do so. So this is a very important thing. Also, the whole mysterious notion of denazification, what a term. Why is that so important in the discourse for explaining to the Russian people at home why he's invading a neighbor abroad? And the answer is, well, remember, this is all about Nazis. Remember the suffering we went through.
Yeah.
Well, that's being replicated right now. The false government in this false state, Ukraine, they're Nazis, and we're going in to denazify them. It's a very resonant date and a very resonant symbol for Russia.
I'll have to get you to repeat yourself because your phone just dropped out there. But if you could just repeat the segment where you said, because I wanted to get your thoughts on this because it's certainly been an impression that I have had that he truly does believe the West has never really appreciated the suffering, the sacrifice, the human toll that the Soviet Union had in defeating Hitler, and for that it's a powerful force, right, Professor?
It is. I think you're absolutely correct, Rob. That part of the revenge and grudge that Putin has as leader of now Russia is that the Russian people never got the credit they deserve for absorbing the pain of the Nazi advance and their defeat of it, particularly the siege of Leningrad. But the West never has given them the credit they deserve, and therefore May 9th is so significant because this was the defeat, the official surrender date of Nazi Germany. And it also explains the Nazi denazification. The symbolism of being a Nazi is so resonant in Russia that, yes, if you're going into Ukraine, not a real state, to get rid of a Nazi government there, well, then it's certainly justified to the people at home. So the denazification and the symbolism of that date are very resonant indeed for what we're seeing in front of us.
Okay. I don't know what to make of this news reporter or these comments. And the first casualty of war is the truth. And you always have to be careful what you read in the news media, especially these days. But certainly this has been picked up on. The former Russian president, Dmitry Medvedev, remember Putin was president, but he had a term limit. Medvedev came in, he became president, Putin became, I think it was prime minister, right? And then
a placeholder there.
A placeholder, yeah. And then Putin came back. So this is Medvedev. Has said that Putin is trying to build a Russian empire stretching from Vladivostok to Lisbon. And I apologize for the pronunciation there. And this is the quote. It's all over, especially the UK media. The goal is for the sake of the peace of future generations of Ukrainians themselves and the opportunity to finally build an open Eurasia from Lisbon to Vladivostok, which is near the Russian-China border, according to my internet search this morning. So what do you make of a comment like that?
It does reframe the conversation. First of all, that this is not about recreating the Soviet Union. It's bigger than that. This is about recreating a Russian empire. It's about Russian colonialism, about the need for them to regain past glories that expands beyond the boundaries of a Soviet Union, which went to Vladivostok after all. So I think reframing that and it helps perhaps explain their behavior and what their goal is. But this opens up, Rob, a horrific image of Russians now having to re-educate, take into camps in huge numbers Ukrainians to re-educate them away from this false consciousness, to borrow a Soviet term, to stamp out the very concept of Ukraine. So if you combine that with our earlier comments, it does mark perhaps a dark period ahead.
But it seems delusional. I mean, it seems delusional.
It may be delusional, but it's motivating behavior which we are not prepared to put a stop to ourselves. It can reshape the world.
Okay, well, maybe let's segue into, is this the start of something bigger? Because then you had the top American military commander in front of congressional leaders this week saying the world is becoming more unstable and the potential for significant international conflict is increasing, not decreasing. We are now facing two global powers, China and Russia, each with significant military capabilities, both who intend to fundamentally change the rules-based current global order. We are entering a world that is becoming more unstable. The potential for significant international conflict is increasing, not decreasing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty significant conflict right now. So what could come next?
Yes.
Mark Milley is.
Yes, and General Austin was there at the same hearing. We have now two nuclear-armed states who felt they were humiliated in the past, and they're taking actions to correct that humiliation. And we are watching the results real time in the destruction of Ukraine. The U.S. has now, in a sense, on the one hand, really taken the lead in organizing NATO and organizing democracies against Russia, but at the same time, and sending a very cautionary note to China. This has been done very clearly. Hey, you better not be supporting Russia in this. You're going to get caught up in the sanctions, and there's a penalty to be paid. But the U.S. repeatedly said, again, as of today,
Okay. Is he going to come back? Is the feed going to come back? You know what, David, why don't we stop here and you can reconnect with the professor and we'll pick it up on that point. It's 11:43. This is The World with Professor Elliot Tepper. He's our guest every Thursday at this time here on The Rob Snow Show on City News.
That's how I like it to sound. It's burning to the power of tears. It gets too hard to pick up. I know that one day it's gonna break down, 'cause I'm running into the ground. It's only got so many tracks left around the sun. Rusting out of gasoline, baby. When you're trying to drive it as far as you can, it's hard getting started now and it's shaking like it didn't before. I know that one day it's gonna break down, 'cause I'm running into the ground. It's only got so many tracks left around the sun. That's funny that I was getting pushing it as hard as I can. I'm not talking about athletic marathons. I know that one day it's gonna break down, 'cause I'm running into the ground. It's only got so many trips left around the sun.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Okay, we're back with Professor Elliot Tepper, International Affairs expert at Carleton University, on the prospects for a broader conflict, something that spills over the borders of Ukraine. What are your thoughts this week on that?
Unfortunately, it's easy to say, look, these are military, they're generals, they always want more money for their budget, so they always paint a dire picture. Okay. But there's no doubt at all we have a dire picture. We have two nuclear-armed states that they're feeling in the past humiliated and they want back. So this is indeed leading to an escalation of tension. What the U.S. has done, on the one hand, is taking a big, major global role. We are back, leading the organizing of NATO and the democracies against Russia, sending a cautionary note to China. Do not get yourself involved in this. But the U.S. repeatedly emphasizes what it will not do, Rob, directly confront Russia in what could lead to a nuclear confrontation. So now we're faced with an interesting question. And it's a fair question. Is this an example of cool heads despite provocation? And boy, do we have the images coming out are indeed provocations. The behavior is provocative. Or are we encouraging provocations, in this case, down the line, by letting Ukraine be, in effect, destroyed and battered? The possibility exists that China is really the winner in all this. China, on the one hand, is saying, we are partners in this revisionist task. We are going to help undermine the West. We're going to undermine NATO. We're going to show that us emerging powers and formerly humiliated powers will no longer be humiliated. On the other hand, if they back Putin, who becomes increasingly evident as a war criminal, then that in turn probably throws Russia into their arms, increasingly all the different ways that the West is sanctioning them. Russia can make that up. You need credit cards? We got them, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm concerned here that the democracies are, in fact, facing a challenge and may not have all the equipment necessary to deal with it because of the nuclear threat and the credible possibility that we could have an increase in tensions going forward.
Very interesting. Okay. Oh, by the way, I noticed a story that's developing here over the last few hours is the ruble, the currency, has made a huge comeback here.
Yes,
it used to take, when the sanctions were first imposed, and you remember we were talking about SWIFT and how this would financially isolate Russia from the global economy. The currency it crashed, and it took at that time 121 rubles to buy $1, and now it takes 74 rubles to buy $1. But that's where it was before all of this started. So,
the return of the ruble is a big story, I guess. It can get very complicated.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of, Russia's now saying to all the people that supplies energy, all the countries that supplies energy to, now you have to pay in rubles. And they're saying, no, we have a contract, so we'll have to wash this through banks, which Russia controls. And then the West says, well, we're going to cut those off, et cetera. But the short answer to all this is that the turmoil in the markets has led to a sharp spike in the value of all energy resources. Russia makes its money off energy resources, and the ruble has gone up.
Yeah, yeah. And, Germany is still buying Russian energy. Greece is buying Russian energy. Italy is buying Russian energy.
India is buying.
India, China, right?
Yep.
So.
Yes. Yeah, China's the biggest importer of Russian energy at about 15% of their total. They've made long-term contracts. They've made, going forward, the 30-year contracts at a very favorable price. You have to build a new pipeline through Kazakhstan to make it happen, et cetera. But at the same time, China has to be very cautious. They don't run into global sanctions. They are starting to hedge their bets on the energy side of things, I read, saying that, well, we'll keep our current immediate contracts, but we're not going to buy on the spot oil market anymore because it'll run into the sanctions, and we can't afford that. So you're getting into the complications of a global energy market there. But right now, the ruble is benefiting, as is the Canadian dollar, from high energy prices.
Okay. Now, let's turn our attention to what's happening with diplomacy. EU nations have expelled dozens more Russian diplomats. It's a coordinated move. 200 envoys and staff sent home from various European countries, EU countries, just over a 2-day period. But Canada is not really doing much. Prime Minister Trudeau said yesterday, before he went into his caucus meeting, quote, "I'm just not sure the symbolic gesture of excluding Russian diplomats from what they are doing in Canada is worth the cost of losing our diplomats in Moscow." What do you think of those remarks?
Well, they're certainly plausible. It's the standard response of government saying we need eyes and ears on the ground. If we don't have them, we lose. And that's a cost to us, not to them. And that's a generic statement. The numbers do give some weight to that. The Russians apparently have 80, in that same news story, 87 diplomats here. We have 34 there. If we kick out what we know to be the Russian, I shouldn't say that, if we remove diplomatically the number of Russians in the embassy here that are considered to be spies, then that could be retaliated. But if we kick out 18, 20, 30, 40 out of that 87, and it's reciprocated, basically our embassy then becomes denuded altogether. At some point you say, at what cost? At what stage do we make Russia a pariah state? And right now, most countries, in fact, are keeping some level of diplomatic presence there. Our foreign ministers calling in their ambassador, putting him on the carpet and saying, hey, you are putting out false information. We're not going to have it. I want to show you some pictures from European and Bucha to show that what you have said, the Russians never targeted civilians, is wrong.
Okay, let's move away from the Russia-Ukraine story and actually get into some more optimistic news. Because there has been the war in Yemen. You have the Yemeni government, it's backed by Saudi Arabia. You have the Houthi rebels backed by Iran. The United Nations has managed to broker a ceasefire in Yemen, began on Saturday. What's your reaction to this news?
That's the start of Ramadan, but the truce is to go on for 2 months beyond the holy month of Ramadan. It's very good news. There's also some breakthrough in Ethiopia in terms of the Tigray region. So what we are seeing right now is some green shoots of peace breaking out in our springtime. I'm afraid both of these ceasefires, or this hope for ceasefires, might turn out to be very ephemeral. They're very shaky. It's not clear. But any news we get right now, Rob, that something good is happening in the world and that war is stopping and talks are underway, perhaps even, a model for Ukraine, that's very welcome indeed.
Yeah. Yeah. For people who aren't aware of the conflict in Ethiopia, what is that about?
Well, I'm less aware of it.
Briefly.
Very briefly. I'm not an African specialist, as you know. I'm an Asian specialist and something to do with the Middle East. But we've got warring parties that have been going on for quite some time in the most vicious possible fashion in the Tigray region. The two parties now have apparently tentatively agreed to stop the carnage for a while. In terms of Yemen, you phrased it very well, that there's some proxy wars going on.
Yeah.
The Houthi rebels are supported by Iran. What does this tell us? If Iran is now willing for the Houthis to call some kind of a ceasefire, with Saudi Arabia and also the UAE involved on the other side, both allies in various ways, mysterious ways sometimes of the West, this is up until Ukraine happened, Yemen was considered, along with Tigray, one of the worst humanitarian places on earth, starvation being a prime factor. So I'm not too optimistic in either of these cases that this will hold, but I do take it as very welcome and perhaps a sign that Iran may be changing its position a bit, given the shifting geopolitics of the region, so that perhaps there might even be a chance for a breakthrough in that place.
Thank you again so much this week, Professor. Great to get caught up with you once more and take part in your insight.
Oh, the world is always interesting to discuss, Rob. Not always a pleasure, but interesting.
Yeah. We'll speak next week. That's right. Professor Elliot Tepper, Distinguished Senior Fellow, Norman Paterson School of International Affairs, and that's The World with Professor Tepper. You can hear every Thursday morning here on The Rob Snow Show. Sam LaPrade is coming up right after the news with The Sam LaPrade Show. I'm back tomorrow after the 9 o'clock news, Friday Free for All at 10. Rob Snow Show on City News.
The Rob Snow Show.
Weekdays 9 to noon on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley.
This program is brought to you by